Regular Board of Selectmen meeting Thursday, April 25th, 2019. First, we have a public hearing. The Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Thursday, April 25th, 2019 at 7 o'clock at the Town Hall, 6633 Main Street, Bolton, on the petition of National Grid to construct a line of underground electric conduits, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures under and across the public way or ways hereinafter named Nashua Road and Kettle Hole Road. National Grid is to install a total of 1,786 feet of underground primary from riser pole 37 to pad 10. National Grid to install 2 pole boxes and 1 fuse switch pad. The work is performed to correct cable faults along Nashua Road and Kettle Hole Road. A copy of the petition is on file. Do you have to read that? No. Okay, who do we have here from National Grid? Did they just step out?
We do. I don't know, because we do expect somebody. Laura was coming to represent.
No, that fellow was just here, was with,
Okay.
With our engineering firm.
yeah,
Okay.
the name just right in my head.
This is interesting.
We've gone down this road before, where we postponed the hearing
Mhm.
till later on this evening to get some issues.
We have, I mean, we could, I just want to make sure we do it right because it's a hearing. You're right, we can postpone for now and move into the next agenda item, and hopefully the rep is just retained the traffic.
Okay. Do we forget on that?
No.
Okay, so we'll postpone till they arrive. Next, we have a discussion with Superintendent Clenchey regarding the creation of a stabilization fund for universal full-day kindergarten. Hello and welcome.
Thank you.
Brooke, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. Thank you for having us. Really
See you.
appreciate
Pleasure.
it. Yeah,
Pleasure.
nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
How are you? I'm McGuire, Assistant Superintendent.
Jonathan.
Nice to meet you. Pleasure. Hi there.
Nice to meet
Nice to
you.
meet you too.
I might have additional plans to
These off to the side for sure.
So I have just a very brief presentation that I'm going to give, and then I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I want, it's important to me to also bring Dr. McGuire tonight, who is our new assistant superintendent. It's the first time. Yes, I know. Yes, me for Brooke.
Welcome to the party. Thank you
Yes.
very much.
So
But we've had an assistant superintendent before.
You have, that's correct, and then we did without for 2 years.
Okay.
And so this is bringing that position back in, so that it was just, we're delighted to have him. So I said to him tonight, I just wanted to bring him to introduce him to
Great.
you. So we're going to talk about kindergarten tonight, this was at your request, and so I'll go
Thank you.
through everything, and I'm really happy that you invited me, because I appreciate your interest, and I appreciate the fact that you have the opportunity to discuss it with you for whatever that looks like. It's a long discussion, short discussion. If you have additional questions, you know I'm happy to go back and find answers if I
Sure.
don't have them tonight. So I'll go through it kind of quickly. If you turn over to the first page, where you've got the enrollment data, I just want to talk about that quickly. Right now, we're one of the few districts in the state of Massachusetts that does not offer full-day K, free full-day K. We offer full-day K, but that part of that money is picked up by the parents, right? And so I'm going to get to that bottom line here shortly. What we're looking at is what is it going to take for us to get to a point where it is free full-day K for basically universal full-day K. So any child who comes into the system that wants K can have it. So that's where this is heading. In terms of the state, there's about 85%, a little bit over 85% that already have this in play. So we're kind of lagging in that area, and you'll see why as we work through this. This is what our enrollment data is looking like, what our projection is for next year. And if you take just a really quick look at the farthest right-hand column, you'll see that Center School, for example, right now only has 5 students signed up for half day. Florence Sawyer, 5. Lancaster has 18, but we suspect that probably if it had been free full-day K, we probably would have had more children in the free full-day K than the half-day K. The other thing that we found over the course of the last couple of years is we might start out with that number, let's say 5. By the time we start school, it might be at 2 or 1. So the bottom line is for us to offer a half-day and a full-day makes no sense, because the parent, it's very clear the parents want the full day.
Well,
So-
the parents, they want the full day, but they don't wanna pay for it.
Right, that would be correct, yeah. Over the next page, one of the concerns that I had, and how you need to look at this particular chart is on a diagonal. Because my concern initially when we were thinking about this is, what happened, will we have a massive influx of students into that K realm that we aren't expecting or can't see right now? You have to take a look at the diagonal as students move from K to grade 1, because that was my concern, is that as soon as we went to do this, we would just open the floodgates and we would have lots and lots of students that we don't anticipate trying to come into the program. But if you take a look, the differential is basically what you're looking at the bottom line, for example, in the first screen, and it's a difference of 9 kids 1 year, 2. Now, you have those odd years where you've got 19, but you can see that there are other years when it's down much lower. So the bottom line for us is we realized that we weren't gonna have an influx of like 50 or 60 children with this. And if you take a look at, for example, if you break it down to center school, for example, you even have a -1 in some cases. So we realized that that wasn't something that needed to hold us back, that we could move forward looking at this a little bit more thoroughly. Over the next page, we've got full-day kindergarten costs. We took a look at the biggest piece of the pie for us, which is, of course, salaries. And these are based on this current year. Everything that we did, all the scenarios we ran were based on the numbers that we've got this year, because we knew that those were tried and true numbers. So kindergarten teachers, there you've got the 776,000, the instructional aid is 280. Basically, you're looking at $1 million in salaries. If you take a look over the page, regular appropriation in this current school year is 571,000. The revolving fund, which is the tuition money that I was speaking of earlier that the parents are paying, will be coming in at $494,000. If we were able to have been in the DESE stream.
I'm sorry, I just need for clarification. When you say
Of course.
regular appropriation, that means what you put in the budget.
Right, that's absolutely correct. If you take a
Alright,
look.
so what you're saying is that right now, the parents who are paying for full day are not paying for all of it.
Right, that's right, they pay for their half.
Right.
40 or 45%.
Right.
That's correct.
Right.
So over the next page is, there's that same number, that same $494,000. If we were already in the DESE pipeline for reimbursement for this year with this amount, this number of students that we've got, we would have received $512,000 from the DESE for reimbursement. So we would have received more money from the DES reimbursement than we're receiving from tuition. In short, what we're charging for tuition has never been an appropriate amount.
Right.
Comparatively speaking to the amount of money that the program costs us to run. So you can look at it and say, we're losing money every year, or you can look and say, we're investing our money every year into the K. So at what point in time do we kind of say, wait a minute, we need to stop and rethink this, and that's really where we were headed.
Okay, now, to that point, I have another following question.
Sure.
Where you show it's roughly $1 million to do it, that's just salaries, that doesn't include benefits.
Right, that's a complicated piece. There are some benefits in there and some that are not, so you're absolutely right.
So there are some benefits not, so it's more than just salaries and wages in there.
In the $1 million?
Yes.
The $1 million, no, the $1 million is being that conservative number, saying this is the bulk of what it costs us. It's in terms of salaries, the $1 million.
But what Bob's saying is it's not all of the benefits are.
It's not 100% of all
Right.
the benefits,
So
no, that's
the
correct.
number is actually
A little higher. Right.
Yeah, so it's not, it doesn't include healthcare or anything else.
There is some of that included in that, that's what I'm saying. It is a
Okay.
pretty conservative number. It's a number that I feel you can say, we can take that number to the
Okay,
bank.
so there is more in there than just salaries and wages?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Probably a better term would be the costs for the teachers and the cost for the, that's probably would have been better
But
terminology.
even so, sometimes people include just the direct
Yeah.
expenses and not the indirect expenses.
No, I absolutely understand that,
Okay.
absolutely. We also had the DESE run the numbers when we got the new cherry sheets this year to say, okay, if we were, have this in play for next year, the 1920 year, what would our number be like at the end of next year based on the numbers that we're working on this year? That number would have been 569, just to keep it in perspective, right? So you look and say, okay, so when we see this, at what point in time does Neshoba Regional School District decide that it's going to change and its resourcing and look down a different avenue? And I think that's really where we're at. The problem for us is that there's one gap year, and that one gap year is when you don't get the tuition money and/or you don't receive reimbursement, because you're always 1 year behind in your reimbursement from the state. So you've got that one gap year that you have to have the money for. And we know that that gap year is gonna be $500,000 to $600,000 at least. The longer we put this off, of course, the number's gonna continue to go higher. So for us, it makes sense that we do this in the next couple of years. The school committee, though, has not decided what that looks like yet in terms of a time frame. So there has been no vote to say, yes, we're gonna do this in 3 years or 4 years. And that's probably very prudent, because we don't know how long it's gonna take us to get the money that we need for that gap year to get this kick-started, so that the DESE reimbursements start to kick in and the tuition falls off. So what we had recommended that night, although it was not voted on, so it may or may not be something that's moving forward. We know right now that we can't do this in 1920, because we don't have a pocket of $600,000. We don't believe that we can do it in 20 or 21 either. At the very earliest, we would look potentially at 21, 22, but that's only if we have that pot of money there in order to move this forward. So then we look and we say, okay, what's the vehicle that we use to house those funds? And that's when we reached out to our legal counsel, and they said probably the stabilization fund is the most appropriate way to do this. And then, of course, that also sets aside something in motion that money is there, it's earmarked for K, and it can't be utilized for moving forward by, let's say, a different school committee that decides different priorities or whatever. It's there, and it's earmarked for this program moving forward. So that's one of the reasons why we have that on the upcoming warrant. So that's a real quick snapshot. I don't know if you have any questions or not.
So, outside of the gap year, which you're looking to figure out how to fund that gap year.
Right.
Once it's implemented, it will be basically
No
neutral.
additional costs, that's right.
It'll be net neutral to any additional assessment to the three towns.
That's correct, absolutely correct. Yeah. I think we're just really trying to be thoughtful and proactive in our approach with this. We're not trying to rush this. I think it was also important because, we get phone calls from parents that say, we had several this year, well, I want this to happen next year. It can't, so at some point in time, you have to lay it all out and say, this is exactly why it can't happen overnight or in a year's time. Because you need that bucket of money or we cannot do it.
If I could go back to your kindergarten and
Yeah.
grade 1 enrollment page, if I understand correctly, the reason you want us to look on the diagonal between kindergarten and grade 1
Right.
is because grade 1 is a proxy for what kindergarten would be if kindergarten attendance would be if it were cost-free
Right.
to the parents, okay? But in none of those schools do I see the number, and what's the average size of a kindergarten class?
That's gonna vary, it always varies, right? It
Yeah.
varies from community to community, we try to keep it under 20, we try to aim for that.
But none of these numbers are anywhere near 20, so the unsatisfied demand out there is not a full classroom.
Oh, thank you.
Except perhaps across the whole district, but not in any one of the three schools.
That's absolutely right, and
Okay.
that's one of the reasons, thank you for pointing that out, I really appreciate that, because that was one of the reasons why we felt we could push forward with it, for that very reason.
Okay.
So it wasn't like we had to open up, and that's exactly why we did this, because I was concerned that, oh my gosh, didn't know if we had the room, the physical room in our
Yeah.
buildings to open up another classroom or two in each. So that's exactly why we did this.
Okay. Okay, I think that's very useful.
And how are you looking to gather
The
the
funds.
funds?
So what we have done, we have already earmarked 300,000 that we will be able to put into the stabilization, and that's kind of picking and pulling from our revolving accounts right now. And so that's not coming out of general budget right now. Those are funds that we had available that we're now looking and saying we will earmark those specifically to come into this. So then that leaves us for the next couple of years to say, okay, now how are we going to get the extra money in? So I wouldn't say that we have a solid plan to say we're gonna put this as a budget line. That's not what we're looking into it. We're looking and saying if there's some residual at the end of the year, we know that this is a priority, we'll put some money into it, and that's how we see it moving forward, not as a budget item. And I think that was important for our school committee members too, to be honest with you. I don't think that.
So you're not considering a specific appropriation in the budgets
Not right now,
to fund this?
not right now.
So the warrant item is just setting up this fund,
That's
it's not
correct.
an actual
And-
tax or an increase.
No, that's a great question, thank you, no.
And to your point before about it can't be used for anything else, it could only be used for something else if the three towns voted on it. The school
Right.
committee cannot use
That's
it for
correct.
something else.
That's absolutely correct.
So you're not asking, so you have no intention of asking to directly fund this in the next couple of years?
We see this as our responsibility to start to gather, that this is a priority, to gather our funds, and just looking for that vehicle.
Why, the school committee itself doesn't have the authority to set up a stabilization fund?
Now it has to go through the process.
Have you thought about reaching out to, well, I think you may need to figure out when you want to do this, and reach out to those parents who have children who at the point in time that you offer it at no charge, maybe they should kick in a little bit in order to get it free when their child.
That wasn't something that was on my radar, but I'll certainly take that
Oh,
into
yeah,
advisement.
yeah, you pay a little bit to get, to save a lot. So I think it's.
Well, and I think even if you look at the grand scheme of things, I think we're paying the $600,000 so that we can get onto that DESE reimbursement piece. But I can see why this has been problematic in the past, because when do you stop and when do you say we have to gather this money?
Right, right.
But basically, we are paying into this
Mhm.
fund through our state taxes, and then parents who are in kindergarten are paying, half as much in addition to the taxes they're paying
That's
to the
correct.
state.
From that lens,
Well, but the three towns are already paying more than half of it through our assessment, so. Okay, well, I guess the key is that once, other than this gap year,
Mhm.
it basically funds itself.
that's correct.
And that was very important for me to get, make sure we were clear on that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I really appreciate you asking me here to talk about it.
No, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's really helped. So do we want to vote on that warrant item now?
I would suggest if you do, if you're ready, sure.
Do you know which is the, what number that is?
I didn't bring it with me,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Just give me 1 second and I will get to it.
Great.
Article 26.
Yeah, I make a motion that we vote to approve Article 26, which is the establishment of the stabilization fund for the garden.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, Brooke.
Thank you very much.
And pleasure to meet you. Meet you soon.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much.
Good to see you, you too. Great to meet you.
They're always this
Great to
easy,
meet
by
you.
the way. They're always this easy.
The charts were great.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, I have that, thank you.
Tom, Superintendent?
Hopefully, gonna
With the bolt on the independent?
Yes. Of course, that'd be great. This is all also posted.
Do we have a representative here from National Grid? So we are going to return to our public hearing about underground work on Nashway Road and Kettle Hole Road.
Good evening.
Hello.
That had my original communication, so it's completely my fault.
No,
So sorry.
no problem, that's the traffic.
Never been to one of y'all's, so.
Okay.
We all fight, so. So we read the notice,
Yes, sir.
and we have this diagram, which shows the area affected.
Diagram, what's left on
Yeah,
this?
that's just with the abutters list of.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
it's the same as.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you could just describe it maybe in a little bit more detail.
Well, I'll
what's
just
gonna
basically
happen.
read exactly what's gonna happen, and then show you on this, cause it's
Okay.
colored. So what we need to do is install a total of 1,786 feet of underground primary from riser pole 37, which is right here on the corner.
Mhm.
To pad 10, install 2 pull boxes, install 1 fuse switch pad, and the work is going to be performed to correct a cable fault along Nashaway and Kettle Hole Road. So that's the reason we need to install that.
What's been happening with the cable fault? Is that-
Well, that I'm not privy to.
Okay.
But I can tell you, if there's a cable fault, what that means for residents is, could be voltage drops,
Mhm.
so that their service isn't as reliable as we need it to be
Okay.
for them. And cause flickering lights, it could cause anything, honestly.
So you'll be digging in the road or on the side of the road?
The side of the road,
Okay.
yeah.
Am I right in assuming that this is already buried cable?
Well,
That
actually,
there
I
are
was
no
looking at
telephone
that.
poles?
Yes,
I
it
was
is.
looking at that too, and
It
you're
is.
right,
That's
that is
the existing
that's
service.
a
Right, so,
conduit, yes.
yeah, so the issue is not you're gonna take wires from a telephone pole and bury them. The issue is the wire, you're having problems with the wire that's already buried. So you
Yes.
have to dig up the length of it to replace it.
Well, we're not digging up the length of it, we're going to pull it from the conduit that's already existing. So we don't dig everything up
Okay.
and then take it out
So
and
you
put
have
it
to
on back.
excavate around certain sections?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
that wasn't clear from the application.
forgive me,
I
yeah.
thought we were just burying everything.
Yeah, no, because we have the
Okay.
existing conduit already,
Yeah.
so what we do is the pull boxes are going to help, because that'll help us be able to
Yeah.
pull the cable through.
Okay.
So how many feet apart are the pull boxes? Over
pull
1,700,
boxes-
this is roughly apart.
Let me look for pull box 1, so that's here. Pull box 2 is right here. I don't know how many feet that is
Yeah, I
apart
can't
from each other
understand.
from, so it's right between lots 1 and 2, and then right in front of lot 6, forgive me, yeah, 6.
It looks about
About
3/4.
Yeah.
That's good. And we have the tree warden here, Mark Case, did you have any comments?
No, like I said, this is, like she mentioned, this is all pre-existing underground utilities, and if they're upgrading them, there's been some work on Kettle Hole recently, where they did some excavation already. They had to cross a driveway. That's already been taken care of. So the creativity of the new pads and everything will all fall within that taking that they're already maintained. It's cleared from any trees and branches and brush and stuff like that, so there's minimal impact at all.
Okay.
And they may have to prune back a little bit of the precipita on the corner, but pretty much it's
Are
minimal.
there other cables Are there other services provided by cable in these same conduits?
They could go in our conduit, yes. Not in our conduit, but they would be,
They'd be buried alongside in their own
Yes,
conduits?
yes,
All
our
right,
own
so this
conduit.
wouldn't affect any other
no, sir,
cable
no, sir, not at all.
issues?
Not at all.
And there's no public utilities or anything like that buried under there at all? You're not anywhere near the gas pipeline?
Oh, no, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't see anything on the civil drawing.
Okay. I'm fine.
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
Sounds good. We have a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the work so described on National Road and Kettle Hill Road by National Grid.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? And we need a motion to
Motion to close
leave,
the hearing.
close the hearing.
Motion to close the hearing.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much again.
No problem.
Have a nice night.
Thank you so much, y'all too. Sorry.
We have a request for approval of annual Bicycles Battle and Cancer Ride on Sunday, June 10th, 2018. Mr. Mark Walters, hello.
Hi.
Good to see you.
June 9th.
Did I? Yeah, and I have 2018. Still 9th, 2018.
June 9th, 2019.
Sorry about that. June 9th, 2019.
So, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Mark Walter, working with the American Cancer Society on the Bicycles Battling Cancer charity ride. This will be our 11th year of the event, as we discussed. The event's on Sunday, June 9th. I know it's been coming through Bolton for several years. The course is unchanged from last year. The riders will come through in the early morning between 7:30 and 8:30 along Lancaster Road. And then they kind of come back on their way back along Harvard Road and then turn left onto, they turn left onto Berlin from Aquatic, which will have a police detail. The police chief has approved the ride. We will have a couple of police details that I'll be working with him to secure. And that's pretty much.
The chief also noted in the packet, this is a long-time event,
Yeah.
and there's been no issues.
How much did you raise last year?
I don't know. I'm sort of more on the logistics
Okay,
side, so I'm
okay.
not, but I should know the answer to that.
Well, it's the
Fun
11th
fact.
It's the 11th year, so they must be doing something.
Yeah.
There you go. Good.
All right,
Don't
well,
have any questions?
Yeah, there's two charts here,
Yeah,
and I'm not sure,
Does that make
it looks
one
like,
loop?
it looks like there's
so-
separate mile markers.
that's right, because so the first part here is when they're going out. So this
Okay.
is mile 7, 8, 9, and then they come back through later in the day at around mile 65 for people that are doing the 100-mile ride.
So they're coming in Lancaster, Randall Road to Lancaster Road onto Aquatic,
Correct.
and then,
And they're coming down Harvard Road, they cross 117, and then they take Aquatic to Berlin.
I'm confused,
Okay.
because it looks like
That's the latter part,
that's the latter part,
so that's, right, so that's the
but
beginning.
this is in the same part of Bolton as
Right,
this section.
correct.
So when they're coming up, they go up Aquatic Road, and they go where, on 117 Manor Road and up Harvard Road, and then they're gonna come back Harvard Road?
So they go up Lancaster Road, make the left on Aquatic, and then I forget what road that turns into.
Old Bay?
I think that's South Bolton Road.
And they go into Clinton. And then they come back along Harvard Road, from Harvard, come down Harvard Road, cross 117.
Yeah, no, this map I'm comfortable with.
Okay.
It looks to me like there's a a part of the outward bound route in Bolton that's not on that map. Because this ends right in the center
Right.
of Bolton.
Oh, this is, okay.
At least that's the way I'm reading it. If I'm not reading that correctly, please let
Yeah,
everybody
I
know.
thought this, I cropped these to, I thought this was where I thought this is now into Clinton, but maybe it's not, but,
This is Lancaster Road.
because I thought it was about a mile.
We take Waterquatic Road to the end, where Lancaster Road and Waterquatic both meet at the train tracks. And you would take a left off of Waterquatic and cross the train tracks and I'm assuming you're going over Chase Street at that point. Either that or you're going straight down Water Street, one or the other. But yeah, that's where,
Excuse me, sorry.
Bolton ends at those train tracks.
Okay,
Well, actually, technically, it's a couple of houses down Chase Street, but
okay. I'm sorry, I'm just not,
Yeah.
100 miles, so I'm just, I can totally picture the Harvard crossing. I'm intimately familiar with that one. I'm just not quite visualizing this one, but, I mean, so what you're saying is Bolton continues up here? That's what I'm hearing.
Well, but regardless,
Because
this
there's
is,
Colonial Drive, and I don't know.
but this is the same route that you've always taken.
That's
Yes.
right.
So it's the same route for the past 11 years, so
All right.
we may not necessarily have it all on the maps here.
Yeah, I certainly make it.
really what you're doing is turning onto Bolton Road, and then you go down the hill, and then at the bottom it becomes Water Street. But where you see, you never get to Colonial Drive, that's in Clinton. You would take a left onto Bolton Road.
Okay.
Okay, so it's an issue with the map.
Now,
All right,
double.
It's my neighborhood, so I'm familiar with it.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Don will be out there handing out water.
Definitely won't be doing a 100-mile route, that's for sure.
All right, then I make a motion that we approve the request for the annual Bicycles Battling Cancer Ride on Sunday, June 9th, 2019.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good luck. We have a presentation on proposed development consisting of 11 single-family homes located on approximately 5 acres of land located on South Bolton Road.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jim Warren. I'm the owner of the land on South Bolton Road.
Well,
I got a few handouts. Thank you, Tom. So this is what I had before the planning board last night. It's just a blow-up of the site, and we put it over here for discussion last night. Excuse me. And then I have this item, and I have an extra one for you there.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
thank you, sir.
Basically, it's a PowerPoint presentation, but I know we don't have PowerPoint, so. For the record again, my name is Jim Warren.
Jim, do you have another one?
I have one other.
Thank you.
So what we did in order to develop this land, we put a team together. I'm on the team, obviously, I'm an owner and developer with 20 years of experience working on environmental issues and construction in many municipalities in Massachusetts. Also, our collaboration partners, Ducharme and Dillis, they've done several plans like that one right there. My project manager for the team is Seth Donahoe, who works at Ducharme. And also with us is Jim Herrick, who has got over 25 years of civil engineering experience. So what we're going for is a comprehensive permit site application. The property is known as the old Bonazzoli property. It was used as a gravel pit for many years, since probably 1960. As I've been told in the past, they used the gravel to build 495. So what the project details look like, if you go to the next slide, we're proposing basically a 600-foot private road. We'd like to call it Mallard Lane, and it'd have a cul-de-sac at the end of it. We're proposing 11 aged-in-place, single-story, two-bedroom homes. 3 homes will be at the non-market rate, and 8 homes will be at the market rate. They'll be each approximately 2,000 square feet, and they'll have 2.5 baths and 2-car garage attached. The basic construction of them, I think the most important that I'm trying to explain to people is they'll have a truss roof. Why I think that's important is we're trying to make these aged in homes so people can age in their home and they'll have no bearing walls on the interior of the home. When you truss a roof, all the weight goes to the outside. So if you envision if you're ever wheelchair bound or in your hospital bed and you need to take down walls to get from your bedroom to the kitchen for whatever reason, you'll be able to do that. And the homes will be very easily handicap addressable. And that's, we're trying to do homes that are age targeted, you know, so people could downsize and that type of thing to them.
And what's the kind of the price range or estimate?
The price range right around $529 on the market rate. So the next slide would be the actual site locations. You can see how it sums up on South Bolton Road. Kind of the timeline of the events. My wife and I purchased the property in 2017. We had a town department head meeting back on March 12, 2018. We had a public meeting at the Zoning Board of Appeals on March 20th, 2018. We've had several conversations with all the town departments throughout the process. April 1st, 2019, we applied for comprehensive permit site approval application. April 18th, 2019, we had a site visit by Mass Housing, and a lot of the town officials were there, police chief, fire chief, town planner, so on. Last night, we went to the planning board meeting, and tonight, we're in front of the board of selectmen. So this talks a little bit about, you know, why my wife and I decided to do a project like this. We feel that it would help diversify the housing in Bolton, and allow existing homeowners, if they want to downsize and stay in town. Again, like I said, they're age-targeted housing, allowing owners to age in place. Bolton is an AARP community, and it needs housing like this. I was told by the town planner that a few years ago, Bolton, there was a proposal to make Bolton an AARP community, and you guys accepted and voted it as such. And potentially would free up some single-family homes for larger families that would like to move into Bolton. There is a concept home there, and there's a floor plan in the back of that concept home. That concept home is a 3-bedroom. The bedroom on the left front side would be converted to an office.
So there is an upstairs?
No, it's all single-story living. It's very important.
Is there a basement?
There'll be a full basement, yeah. In New England, my building career, I've tried a slab once in my life, and I'll never do it again.
What
Very
happened?
cold. I had to put an exterior door in between 2 rooms and shut the room down. It was over 15 years ago. Now we do a radiant electric heat floor, might be a little different, but, and then if you ever want to access that area below that room, it's very difficult.
Jim, can you ask Jim what town he lives in?
I live in Bolton.
Oh, you do live in Bolton?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you.
And so we have notes here
From the fire department and the planning board meeting from last night.
okay. So these were generated after last night's meeting?
Yes. I can put them together today.
Should we read those, or?
I don't know that you need to read them aloud.
Okay.
The request from Mass Housing, as you can see from Mr. Busby, is that there's one communication from the selectmen, from the office of the Board of Selectmen, that includes all comments rather than receiving them from various points. So the Board of Selectmen would serve as the focal point for any comments, but you're free to add yours as well.
If the selectmen make comments now, does that Can we make multiple comments over the course of this project?
Over the course of the time frame we have to submit comments, which I believe is 30 days, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, but on another, this is not a 40B then?
It is a 40B.
It is a 40B. On another 40B, I thought we recently made comments long after the original.
We did. I mean, you're not restricted. I mean, what they're looking for is the initial comments from the town. You're certainly not restricted to make additional comments in the future.
That's my question. Okay. Okay.
So we have comments from the planning board and the fire department. They seemed, comprehensive. Unless you have any
Yeah,
questions, we can
it's-
open it up
it's-
to the.
Yeah, it's high density. It looks like there's 3 bedrooms per unit. I assume that all of the septic and similar issues are going to be dealt with in Board of Health. So I've got questions about it, but I don't think it's appropriate for me to weigh down this meeting with them. So I, would have to wait out the rest of the review process. At this point, I don't have any more questions.
Well, I'll just follow up on that. So it's gonna be a shared septic system under the road, or?
No, it'll be 3, if you look at the conceptual plan here,
Okay.
it's scheduled to be 3 different systems. These 4 units will be on this system.
Mhm.
These 4 actually, these 3 units will be on this system, and these 3 will be on this system.
Okay.
Again, it being an old gravel pit, it's sand and gravel down at least
Yeah.
20 feet. It's very permeable soil. It's ideal for septic.
And what's the water supply
The water supply would be individual wells,
for each unit?
not for each unit, for each group of units. It's divided the same way as the
Okay.
sewer
Okay.
at this time.
Okay.
So is that a public water supply?
It's not at this
It's
time,
not.
no.
And then, I guess the bigger thing I'm trying to understand, because we've been having problems in this area with water runoff
Yeah.
on Spectacle Hill. And so in some of these plans, I think I see that wetland that the water flows into. Is a kettle hole behind, is it?
The kettle hole, do you talk about the kettle hole behind Century Mill, or?
There's a kettle hole across the street from Century Mill that the water flows into. I guess it's behind Margaret Campbell's house. So are we in that neighborhood?
We're in the neighborhood. It's the next parcel over. It's shown here on this map. This is, when you can walk it, it was, my take on this is that when Bonazzoli owned the property, he was graveling here. He did gravel this area out down to the water table. He was the original owner of all this land. This is the remaining piece of land that he used as storage. So that's why I guess the odd configuration, when he broke apart lots, he just took the land and sold it. But he gravelled down here to the water table. So that's the source of water here. It's this area, and we did file for an RDA with conservation. So we're going through that process right now to determine, is it a vernal pool? Is it not a vernal pool? This is an isolated wetland at best, because it does not hydraulically connect anywhere to any other water source.
Well, if it's the one I'm thinking of,
It's-
it is receiving a lot of water.
No, it's not that one. That
It's
one's the
not-
next one up.
Okay, it's not. that
Yeah.
one. Okay.
This was man-made by, I believe, Bonazzoli.
Okay.
Yeah, just because I know we're about to, when are we gonna start engineering, looking at the drainage issues in this neighborhood?
As close after town meeting as possible,
Okay.
because we need to get the appropriation first.
Well, this does not directly affect that work, right? Because this would be, if it's affected at all, this would be downstream from that. Am I correct?
There is another issue. On our site visit with the DPW director, he brought up that he's currently working with Ducharme, because they have an issue on this roadway here. There's a basin right about in this location that floods, so they have some flooding here. So he was asking some questions, are you willing to work with us, anything you do here? And I said yes to him, and I already gave Ducharme my permission to do whatever we need to do to be able to assist this flooding area roughly in this location. It comes down here. I think they want to eventually tie it into this wetland here. But his statement to me was he thinks he's figured out the issue, he's currently collaborating with Ducharme on it.
We ready to open it up?
Yeah.
Comments from the public?
I'd just like to clarify the
Can
water issue.
you identify yourself?
Joyce Barrett, 31 Spectacle Hill Road.
Thank you.
So, we have lived at 31 Spectacle Hill Road for just short of 30 years. It'll be 30 years in Labor Day weekend. And the water situation has changed dramatically since Century Mill Estates was installed. And if I could show you, here's, just for those of you who are not in that neighborhood all the time. The pond you were referring to earlier is DM1. These are all slightly different views, but you can see the different water points, right? So, this is a blown-up view. The water that shows in this plan is actually at the very end of my property, okay? It's a smaller pond. It has been there for years and years and years. What has happened is, in recent years, you see we have the wetlands where Mill Pond Road, which is Century Mill Estates, here, comes down. The water now pours down Mill Pond Road, goes on the opposite side of the street from me on Spectacle Hill Road, and we know it gathers in front of Margaret Campbell's home and the home formerly owned by the Lansons, I don't know their current name. Then it pours into the big pond that you were referring to, Spectacle Hill Pond, and then it goes into streams and ultimately has also increased the size of the smaller pond, which is on our property, okay? Which his road is right on top of practically that smaller pond. Now, at the same time, I've always had an intermittent stream, I believe is the way they refer to it, across the front of my property, and now it's quite the river. So my concern is this. If you now have houses down here where this pond is already larger, and there's not a lot, you know, you're just adding to the fact that there's poorer drainage. Everything is running downhill, and this development is a serious concern to me. On top of that, this does have all kinds of wildlife going on, at least at this time of year. You can hear the frogs chirping and peeping and whatever it is they do. And what used to be an old fire road cart path is now a substantially larger road because of all the heavy equipment that Mallard Lane has been bringing in there. And it's well within 100 feet of the pond.
Thank you. Any other comments? Sir?
Gerard Ahern, Nashua Road, and also on the ZBA. So when you say aged-in homes, are they going to be age-restricted, or are they?
They're age targeted according to mass housing.
So 55 and older?
That's correct.
Okay, so,
So is that's real restrictions, or is that?
No, it's real restrictions. It's a rider on the deed.
Okay.
And Mike Busby, who's kind of my project manager for mass housing, says, you know, that'll all be written up in the deed and stuff like that.
and they're all the same size? What was the square footage?
Basically averaging 2,000, from 1,900 to maybe 2,200, no larger than 2,200. They all fit in those current footprints.
No, I get that. So they're the mix-up of market and affordable. The affordables wouldn't be materially.
They have to,
meet in the same size.
in order to meet mass housing guidelines, they have to be the same on the exterior. Exactly the same. You can't notice any difference.
Right.
So what would the affordable price be?
It's about 175.
sir?
William Stevens, I live on 37 Spectacle Road. I think Mr. Moran's being a little disingenuous. I don't think he knows that Bonzoli's dug that pond. And it certainly is hydraulically attached to water that drains down the hill. It may not be on the surface coming into the pond, it's definitely percolating. And there's a draw across the Fournier's property, and you can see the water running, and it gets actually quite close to that pond. I'd also like to say that when he first put the track that went into the woods was overgrown and pretty much abandoned. We bought our house 10.5 years ago. What was the cart track was largely covered with saplings and brush and stuff like that. The younger Bonzolis were riding motorcycles back there occasionally, but there wasn't any driving. When he put the road in, he put it across our property. We realized that was probably the case and had a surveyor come out, and it was the case. He removed trees and bushes, a lot of earth and gravel, ground cover, and has compacted the ground. He currently has boulders piled up on our property along, now that he's seen that our surveyor has marked it out. And it certainly doesn't show very good faith to the neighborhood about what's going on. He didn't contact any of us. He clearly hadn't had it surveyed because he just went willy-nilly across everything. They've been running machinery at night, which he claimed was a employee which he removed to New Hampshire, but who was working on his own vehicle. But it was heavy tracked vehicles driving and moving rocks. You could hear it. They've been moving a lot of rocks and gravel and stuff off-site. Yesterday he claimed it was just plant matter and stuff, but I took photos of him loading gravel and boulders into dump trucks and driving off and coming out. He's pretty disingenuous about a lot of the stuff he's been doing. He said he's stating that he knows what this and that is, but he doesn't clearly. And I would say you ought to take a lot of what he's saying with lots of grains of salt and maybe comment on that. I'd also be curious on what the actual comments from the planning board were.
So you can, they were good.
We can make copies available.
Okay. I will loan you this one for now, and pass that.
Of the items you described, were any complaints registered with the town?
Yes, and the town did a lot of ignoring. I called, we talked to Jessica Uarty, amongst other people, conservation people. Basically, they all said, get back to us, never did, not return calls after that. We called the police when they were operating for that week, late at night from 10 to, stopping at maybe a little after 10 to 1:30 in the a.m. The police never contacted us back. I know neighbors were contacted back. Other people called the police as well. We had a lawyer present them with a cease and desist about harming our property. I'm guessing is Mr. Moran's wife screamed at him and threatened suits when he was approached her about stopping the trespass. It's been nothing but bad faith kinds of actions on their part.
That's, yeah, I mean, so in this neighborhood, just for some history, you might know it has experienced, another developer
Yes, I'm
who was very, disrespectful of property lines, cutting people's trees, working holidays, weekends, odd hours.
I'll speak a little bit on that, okay? So if you, and I did talk to his attorney, if you look at the 1990 Mass GIS Oliver aerials, you can see those roads and they're well defined. You can actually measure them, probably 5 to 10 feet within that accuracy from the aerials, and you'll see that those roads were there. We didn't put these roads in at all.
But what type of construction are you doing?
I was
Before-
cleaning the back up. Bonazzoli's had left a lot of slash. There's still a lot of slash there. There's some slash along this area that I haven't touched yet. I'm waiting for conservation. But I'm trying to clean my property that I bought. It was left there. A lot of piles of debris were left behind. Bonazzoli's.
What's the nature of those? Is it just
I refer-
gravel tailings, or is it?
A lot of tailings
junk?
and slash.
Slash.
Slash is stumps, it's long logs that they chose, it probably had no value, either like pine or something like that. So you can see these roads have been there for a very long time. The land has been cleared for a very long time. When Bonazzoli sold me the property, he had a lot of heavy equipment in there. He took out about $32,000 worth of materials that he didn't want anymore in order to sell the property. But the police chief did come out to investigate the trespass. In his words to my foreman, there is no trespass here. And what I did was, the gentleman is correct, when he displayed by survey demarcation, which is an iron pin where his property was, I instructed my foreman to pile boulders along the wall, along the line, so we would not go in there. And I personally installed an orange string. So when the police chief came, he looked at the string and he saw, and we have pictures of where we think the line now is. There is a line in question on the survey, so we need to reach out to GC Wilson. It's up in this location here. It's not accurate, but we're working on addressing that with GC once we finalize our survey with Ducharme.
Any more comments?
This doesn't help, Gerard.
Cape Bayou Wheeler Road, can you just clarify how large the parcel is that you're looking to put 11 houses on?
It's approximately 5 acres, which we purchased. Measurements are disagreeing with that at this time. We've got it around 4.37 acres, but it's still, there's some unknown boundary points there that we're looking to firm up.
So 11 houses on what would generally be a back lot, allowing one house in both of them?
Roughly 2. And the interesting thing about the density of the neighborhood, this lot here, where it's the Bonazzoli's, which has a septic and a well on it, is 13,000 square feet. According to that density, I can get 14 units on that acreage. And that's the existing density that's been there.
Well, that's a pre-existing non-conforming lot.
I understand that, but when you strictly look at it from a density perspective and how it forms the neighborhood, that happens also to be a 2,000 square foot cape. I would like to prove that it does conform with the neighborhood.
Sir?
Yes, my name is Barry Bushinsky. I live at 348 South Bolton Road. Been at that property since 1987. I think that the plan presented is somewhat deceiving. The plan is nothing more than a Google map, an overlay of a plan of units. There's no topography, there's no wetland delineation. So I had an opportunity to look at what was submitted to Mass Housing, and there is a topo map along with the application. I'm concerned with units 4, 5, and 6, and may I approach?
Sure.
4, 5, and 6 is at these locations. So this is a existing, as the applicant has indicated, an existing gravel road. And if you look at the topography, the existing gravel road is at 358. This westerly property line is at 384. So there's a 26-foot vertical height differential. And the distance between the cul-de-sac to this property line is 110 feet. So rise over run will give you the slope. And so 26 over 110 is a 24% slope. So he's got three parcels, three buildings at roughly 2,000 square feet. So there's a major cut into this hill. And so I question the density and to be able to adequately put these three buildings at this location. And there's some grading issues over in this area here, but my concern is these three lots here. The applicant has indicated that the soils can support three septic systems. The application doesn't show any test pit logs, doesn't show any soil conditions. There's no perk tests. We got three proposed septic systems, but yet there's no indication that this site can support three septic systems.
Do you want to address the grading issue?
Yeah, the grading, we also submitted to the town one of these binders. It went to you people at the select board, and in there is the several maps. And one is what we call an existing conditions plan. This was done by Ducharme. So they did go out and take measurements. And as I stated last night, I'm working with Seth at Ducharme to deal with what the grade would look like on that side. The gentleman who just spoke is accurate. It's about a 26-foot grade change from this lot line down to where the cul-de-sac would sit. Some of the issues I talked to at the site visit with the fire chief was, I was thinking about maybe, so we didn't have to have a big cut here, is maybe bring the road around, it'd be roughly 14 feet wide and make a loop road. Because people were, like myself, and I don't want pavement here, so I was asking about grass, you know, and not cul-de-sac. And they said we could do grass here, no structures or anything like that. So if they needed to cut across the green, then they could do that with the fire truck. But we need to look at this item right in here as far as will the road come here, or we'll cut that, and what size cut will we have? To address the issue about the soil suitability and the septics, we haven't had to do that yet. We've done several test holes. We know that it's sand and gravel, but that will come once we get the approval letter from Mass Housing. Then we commission Ducharme to do a more accurate plan, and that's when we do the testing. We'll file with the Board of Health, witness the testing, the soil evaluations, and so on. But it's just not done at this point as part of the application.
Right, so at this point, this is conceptual, but you have to
Right, yeah.
do further work to prove it.
And then the town gets a chance to comment on the more formal. Basically, how it usually goes is the zoning board of appeals will hire a consultant, and the consultant will dig into the nuts and bolts of the project.
So, Don, exactly what is being asked of the selectmen tonight?
The selectmen are being asked to add any comments that you may want to this document, so it can be submitted into Mass Housing prior to the deadline, which I believe is 30 days. I can be mistaken.
Okay, but how much of this is binding? How much of this is, what happens to these comments that go in?
They're supposed to be taken into consideration by the department as they review the application.
Okay. And Mr. Moore needs their approval to go forward?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And once, if that approval is forthcoming, then it's the same sequence as for every other 40B that's there
Yes.
before the town?
That's right.
Can I say something else?
It's his decision.
Is that all right?
Yes.
Anecdotally, we've heard that Bonazzoli's did oil changes right into the ground. When we moved here, there were deteriorating oil drums all over the place. There was a small trailer home that on the quote road that had saplings on all sides of it. It hadn't been moved in 20 years probably. There was rotting motor vehicle and heavy equipment remnants, and lots of cardboard pieces and stuff like that. One other concern I have is toxic stuff from the oil changes and whatnot. You can smell the motor oil there in that area. And, you know, maybe the recommendation would be to have the health department do soil testing. And also that would affect runoff and seepage into wells. We all have wells. And also the vernal pools and stuff. And there's nothing has been said about that in all these plans. It might be a good idea to address that.
Yeah.
Have you tested your wells?
Our well was tested when we moved in. We hadn't thought about that at that point in tests, I don't know if any of them were recent, but they were fine, but, you know, most of us are sort of uphill from this is a bowl down, but the vernal pools, are definitely downhill from this as well. And people may be living there with their wells right in that area as well too, so it might be a big concern to test that stuff.
Did you have one more question?
Or I have a question about how many butters affected by this site?
I don't know how many were on the abutters list.
There was no butters notice.
California 31 Spectacle Hill Road, that's one of my concerns, and we brought this up last night at the planning board meeting. Apparently, for the planning board meeting last night, they didn't have a regulation that abutters needed to be notified. There's a reference to a zoning board meeting a year ago, a public meeting. We have yet to receive any kind of public notice about any meetings about this project. So, as somebody who's lived in this town for 30 years, who's been cut now between Century Mill and now this proposed, it doesn't seem like the town boards have the interests of the town's people in mind when developers come in and present a project like this, because we were not notified of any of these, at this particular project. So a butters list, I've never heard of an abutters list.
Is that in the packet?
There are 12, I don't know that there was an abutters list. I know that there are 12 abutters noted on this map here.
So when do mailings go out to
The public
abutters?
hearing will start with the ZBA.
But there haven't been any public hearings yet. I think that's when the abutters list come into play.
And they'll all be set.
You wanna finish your comment?
Well, he made reference to a public meeting with the ZBA in March of 2018. I don't know what that meeting was, but we certainly, if that was a public meeting, we didn't get a notification.
There wouldn't be, there wouldn't be a notification for a public meeting. It would need to be a public hearing.
Okay.
A public, and a duly posted and advertised public hearing, and then the abutters list must be created, and every abutter must be notified.
Okay, last comment.
Yeah, well, no, I want to just follow up on that. Being in town government myself, this meeting in the ZBA in 2018, a previous board member on the ZBA, Jack Sargent, who I'm friends with, who's no longer in town, he moved out. We were at a seminar. He said, "Bear, do you know what's going on behind your house?" And I said, "No." And so it took Jack to tell me that what was going on in this development. And, you know, like Phil said, none of us have known about this. And it took me, because I knew Jack, and we were in the same, you know, he's an engineer, I'm an architect, and we were at a seminar, and he said, "Bear, do you know what's going on?" And I said, "No." And so a little bit disheartening to find about this way, so.
Well, I mean, I think we're in this time where a lot of people put a lot of land up for sale, and it's scary for a lot of people, you know, what could happen to areas that we just, you know, have taken for granted would just be forested or fields, so, and that's all throughout the town. I'm sure you've seen the signs, so it's tough.
Joyce Barrett, 31 Spectacle Hill Road. I just have to point out, and I realize you all have a lot to do, but we never took that land for granted. When we chose to spend a fair amount of money and investing more in our homes several years ago, the first thing we did was go to the town hall, because I said, before I spend money here, I want to know what's potentially around me that isn't already here. And we absolutely, the town hall people, they pulled out the maps, they looked at that parcel of land, which was the only one that wasn't owned at the time, and said, okay, this is the frontage, this is the land, this is a backland lot, at absolute most, you would have one new home here. And that's what we've assumed all this time. Instead, finding out there could be 11.
Mhm. That's,
Yeah, Margaret Campbell from 5 Spectacle Hill Road. I have a few concerns, not the least of which is the fact that Spectacle Hill Pond is immediately behind my house.
mhm.
And it does drain out, through the back to the wetlands here. And so I was concerned when I heard the heavy equipment late at night, working there. I was just wondering what was happening in the middle of the night, like, are the wetlands that were there still there, or are we gonna go back and see that they're not there anymore? I'm pretty familiar with this area because I, was walking it quite a lot before it was sold, when it was, Linda's property. And I haven't been back to see what's been done, but I do know that there was heavy equipment. We're not talking mild, you know, I know the sound of heavy equipment. I've been listening to it for a decade up on Century Mill. So I just wonder what's been going on without anybody knowing. It seems odd that that level of work could happen on somebody's property before the neighbors are notified that something is happening, you know, that there's a development being planned. It just seems like there's something not right about that. The other thing is that, like Barry, I'm very concerned about what's gonna be taken out of here, what is the materials that's gonna have to be removed in order to take down these hills so that these houses can be squeezed in there. And although it may be similar to the Bonazzoli's house, which is, you know, was built there 30 years ago, it's not similar to really any of the other houses around in terms of having, you know, houses 20 feet apart from each other and having the whole density is not even close to what the rest of our area is like. The other thing that I'm wondering about is in terms of geographically, like south of 495 or maybe even south of Century Mill Road, would one look at the town and say, everything is sort of jammed up right here in South Bolton. Like, we have the largest development in town going on, and it will never have a development that large, 78 houses, it might be 75, on Century Mill Estates. And now we're going to have on a postage stamp of a site that could otherwise take one house, having 11 homes. Why is this all being presented on this area of town? It seems as though, you know, it's being pushed off, like, onto a certain area.
Well, I mean, the town is not directing anyone to do a development any place in town. It's the developer
Yeah.
who chooses that. So, I mean, the town is directing people to the South Bolton neighborhood and saying you need to go there. That's entirely the prerogative of the developer who buys land or doesn't buy land. So there's no nefarious sort of thing going on where, you know, we're shunting everything over there. We have.
No, I know that
has
you
not-
didn't have anything to do
Yeah.
with selecting that site. My point is, though, that in looking at the development in the town, development across the town, that one can reasonably say that the density of one area is significantly different than the density of the rest of the town, and that perhaps that's a reason that a particular development is not appropriate for that area, because it does affect the overall, you know, disbursement or of the type of housing that we have and the density of housing that we have in town. I mean, it is another thing to say, aside from the fact that I am worried about the ability of the water to drain out of the pond in the back of my house and this having an impact environmentally there.
Yeah, I mean, so before you came before us, this is
No, I understand.
the water
It's
issue.
pre-existing issues.
Big issue, and we're
Been going on
trying
a
to
long
solve
time.
it.
No, that's why I did hire an environmental expert, Steve Erickson from Norse Environmental. He's handling the RDA. We'll go through the proper processes with the Conservation Commission, who have jurisdiction on that wetland.
Is there a number of houses less than 11 where you can make money?
housing, I can have 18 units there. And according to Title V, we can have 18. And that's when I had the first meeting way back in 18, I went to a department head meeting. The fire chief asked me to actually make sure I have 20 feet between each unit for fire safety. So that's the first cut we made. And then I noticed, if you look at that potential vernal pool, you can see there's nothing in the buffer zone in 100 feet, so we shrunk the units again. So we've been very cautious on what we're doing. I am an environmentalist. I'm not looking to harm the environment. I'm looking to diversify the housing stock, and to give a nice neighborhood to the town of Bolton where I live.
Well, one thing I'd like to see about, related to the grade issue is
Yep.
a section.
Yeah, you'll get
A section through the site that
Yeah.
shows how you're gonna fit the houses and how you're gonna slope the soils.
Yeah, what Ducharme will do, is they need to do a section for the road anyway,
Okay.
the 600 feet, and you'll see the grading, and when they place the houses on that sectional, on the geographic topo, you'll see the cuts and what the proposals are.
Okay. So, the sheet, we're gonna supply copies so that of the recommendations from the fire department and,
Yeah, we can do that.
the planning board, so in case you wanna add to that, and we'll be looking at it, and
If we can get, if people want to send me email, I can give you my card, and
Is this the same
and
as
we'll
what I
add,
got? You-
we'll add comments from you to the document that's
Yes.
gonna go into.
Someone can take this, I
Mass
just
Housing.
don't have another copy.
All right.
Last night at the planning board,
that's it, like in a second. Okay, last two comments, and then we have to close.
I'm curious that the proposal is for 11 units. Mr. Moran said I can do 18, but yet he conceded that we haven't done perk tests. We haven't done analysis of the septic system. So this whole idea that we can do 8, 11, 18, what are we talking about? It hasn't been designed yet.
Well,
So-
that's exactly right, it hasn't been designed yet, so
Excuse me,
until it does, this is conceptually what it is, and once they do the additional testing, it will bear out whether they can do 11, or he might be only able to do less than that. So, when someone comes in with a conventional subdivision plan, they lay out what possibly can do, and then they have to do the test and see whether or not.
I'm familiar with the process, sir.
Per test,
I'm
and
very
like,
familiar with the
so
process.
you may get less than.
Don't tell me you can support 18 units when you don't even have perk tests.
I didn't say you could support 18 units.
Okay,
Conceptually, that's.
Let's understand what's being said here.
Right.
Okay.
I think it's right now, it's a concept. Until the tests are done, then we won't know whether it supports 11 or less.
I think what Mr. Warren said is that under the mass housing guidelines, you could do that, or under Title V.
Under Title V.
What,
Yeah.
For what?
You don't know
Well,
that.
You don't know that.
okay, and so my point would just be, we are not promising Mr. Warren anything tonight. We are not promising him 2 houses, we're not promising him 18, we're not promising him
You're
11.
supporting site approval to mass housing. That's what's being asked, right? This is not 40B. I understand this. This is prior to 40B, submission to the ZBA. Mass housing is asking for support for site approval. Am I mistaken?
Yes. I would refer to Mr. Loaf to answer that question.
They're asking for comments on site approval, they're not asking the board to approve site approval.
And not support either.
And not support, they're not
What your
looking,
concerns would
they're not
be.
looking for, they want to hear the board's concerns, any issues that you may have, they're not seeking approval from the board. You're not being asked to approve anything.
So what, if we listed every reservation that was put in here tonight without further comment from the selectmen, what role would that play in their judgment of our document?
I don't know what they take into consideration as far as their judgment, but the Board of Selectmen have an opportunity to express their concerns, and I think it's an opportunity the board should take. Even if it's just to reiterate some of the things that you've already got in the document, you could say you support this particular comment, that particular comment. If you've heard comments tonight from the public that you think are particularly valid, you can add them as well. So it's it's the board's opportunity to comment as you wish on this project, but you're not being asked to approve anything.
Or disapprove it.
Or disapprove anything.
So do you have something new to say?
Well, it's
quickly?
something pertinent. Last night in the discussion, they were talking about you had 30 days to comment. Jessica Uriarte said it's 30 days from the beginning of, Erica, excuse me, mentioned that it was 30 days from some other thing, which was April 1st, and she was saying that the period of 30 days was going to end at the end of the month. And that might be something to check because that's only a few days away. The 30 days may have mostly passed already, and so, that may be a pertinent thing.
I think we're gonna make comments tonight if we're gonna make comments.
I just wanna say that the point that Barry, I think, was trying to make is that without having actual perk tests, making a statement like that you could handle 18 on the lot, you don't know. But it sets a bar for everyone in the room so that one might think, gee, he's really kind of doing us a favor by just putting 11 because he could take 18. And I think that Barry's point is that 18 is a fictitious number because we don't know really what the land could take. And so, maybe 11 is still an extreme amount on a lot that ordinarily would be for one house.
Can I comment on that?
Yep, and then we'll
Okay,
move
so,
on.
Jack Sargent was at that meeting, and what Jack said that he used to take all his septic systems gravel out of there, and I dug on the site, and it's all sand and gravel, so the perk rate was gonna be, I'm a soil scientist by state of Massachusetts, that the perk rate on that entire site will be 2 minutes an inch, so you'll have a 5-foot offset for groundwater at the bottom of leaching fields. So that concern is not one, and when we say we didn't officially, we didn't have the soils witnessed yet by Bill Brookings. That will come as part of the program. But if you look at all documents, all the soil, USGS soil mappings and stuff, it shows gravel pit. And when you have a gravel pit, it does perk out very well. That's the quickest perk you can achieve.
How can you explain how you would need 11 buildings to actually make a profit on this? You probably didn't pay much for that 5-acre land lot.
By the time we get done with the permitting of this site, we're gonna spend a lot of money.
Well, unless you don't permit it for 11.
Okay, we're gonna move on. So Don, after we have our 30-day period, then this moves to the ZBA?
I'm not
ZBA is
sure, Jared, I'm not
involved.
sure exactly when it gets to you.
It'll be after the site approval, after mass housing, and then when the applicant actually submits a 40B permit to the town. So,
Okay.
but on that big picture of, this density battle, we just sort of went through it on the Harvard Bolton side of town. Again, small property, proposed, 12 units, where people say, wow, you can't put 12 units on this property. Until the town gets a handle of our affordable housing stock, with some type of plan, and we've permitted many 40Bs in town, I think 6, potentially, but we're gonna have this problem because we don't have 10% affordable, and the developers always are allowed a density bonus, so it's not well, the town takes it really seriously and does, I think, a lot of time and effort in going through the 40 process. I think on the bigger picture, we have to do something on a town-wide basis to say, how do we get ahead of this?
Mhm. Thank you for that. Thank you for coming. So we will keep working on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jack, I'm gonna step out.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we're gonna make comments tonight?
If you like, feel prepared to,
Well, I think we need some clarity as to whether or not the 30-day period ends next week or not. Well, we have a moment here. would just like to take this opportunity to note that there have been people standing in the hallways because there aren't enough seats in this room. Can that make it into the minutes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Empty seats.
Now there are.
No, these seats were empty during the
Well,
meeting.
people chose to not use them. For whatever reason, they stayed in the hallways.
Because they were front row.
They think we file our teeth before.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Sorry, it seems like we're having a little break.
What do you got, a split screen there? Do I see the Red Sox on one half and the Bruins on the other?
No.
Sox and Bruins are both winning.
Right. Sorry.
Tom's coming back.
Oh, I thought,
No. You had your chance to escape, Don. You came back.
Don, do you think we have 30 days or till the end of this month?
I talked to Erica, but I thought we had, the way she was talking, I thought we had into the first week of, I thought we had into next week. I thought we had to the end of next week, actually. We don't have 30 days to tonight, for sure.
Okay.
But we don't have a meeting next week
No,
scheduled.
right, so your comments, you can either do them as a board tonight, or, well, you're better off doing them as a board tonight.
Let me put forth then a suggestion that the Board of Selectmen has serious reservations about this project in regards to its effect on wetlands, the general environment, and water quality in that particular area of town.
Mhm.
The issues that concern me are the water issues in this whole neighborhood. And our DPW director is looking at that and looking at solutions, so that's a big issue for me. And then the issue about grading and wanting to see how they're gonna do it, because it seems like they have to build the houses into the hillsides to, within that cul-de-sac and the hillside. So, those are two big issues that I'm concerned about.
Mhm. Yeah, you're right.
I think that's fine, but, the house on Fort Bushnell Road was done exactly that way. They basically dug the hillside out behind it, so.
And you might want to reiterate, you might want to add something to the effect of, over and above the already stated, the comments stated by the other departments within that document. In addition, you have these concerns, just to say that you support the other comments as well.
Okay. So what else do you need now? Nothing? Okay.
So
Do we have to vote to send this letter?
I think it's best to make a motion, just to have it on the record, the way it was previously stated. And then we can get the additions to Erica, and then she'll send well, actually Linda will send a letter
All
out.
right, so I will make a motion that the selectmen add to this letter at Mass Housing. First, that we endorse the observations and comments made by other town boards and committees. And as a second bullet point, the Board of Selectmen has reservations about this project in terms of its effect on wetlands, its effect on flowing water and groundwater, and the general environment, including excavation required.
Take care of your concern.
I'm sorry, but you need a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Bob. We have Bolton Access Television here. Kim Troop.
Hey Ken, how are you?
Something completely different.
We were fun.
Teresa. Hello.
Hello. Hi.
So this is Nikki McGacky, who is our new
Hello, nice to meet you.
executive director.
Hello, nice to meet you. Thank you. Yes, good to see you.
MC, A-C-H-E, I believe it is, right?
What's that, sir?
He was just spelling your name for me.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a recorder with Golden Pen.
MCGACHEY.
Yeah, he was misspelling it.
No, it's okay. It's really a strange.
I can appreciate that.
So we'll try to help you get back on schedule. But she started this past week, and we're hoping for good things. Teresa, as you know, I think most people don't know, is headed for New Zealand.
Wow.
Wow.
But
Teresa.
we're really fortunate that her departure got put off to the point that she doesn't officially leave until after the town meeting, and so she's been able to spend about a month with Nikki getting her up to speed on the things that are going on, and so it's going to be a very smooth transition, I think, into where we're going. And we're planning to have an open house and reception on the 9th of May, and I realize that may interfere with your meeting, depending if you have one, and the schedule didn't say, but we're having one at the station so that people can come by, say hello, goodbye, and see what we're up to, because as you know, we have implemented a lot of new capabilities and things of that sort, which we can talk about. I sent you guys a note just as some background on the fund, so that you'd understand that, but I wanted to give them a chance to kind of update us on where we are with the planning for the update of the equipment in this room, because we basically have technical people who are not completely in agreement with each other yet. And so we've got, and it seems as if we're plowing new ground in terms of how we get the signals over there with newer fangled HD type of cameras without going into the technical details,
We're gonna see every floor.
It's just harder to do than we thought it was.
Makeup outside.
Powder and makeup.
Makeup's outside.
And we want to make sure that we get it all fully tested out and know that what we're getting will actually work before we go and spend any money on doing it. So if you guys want to update on where we are with that, that would be handy, I think.
I think the most exciting thing is that both channels 8 and 99 are now live on the internet. So you don't have to have Comcast, you only need a computer to actually watch our channels, which is actually pretty amazing. And our bulletin board, of course, plays between meetings, so all of that information about the community is available to anybody who turns on the computer. So I think both those things are really amazing. We also have the VOD is now set up. We're starting to load stuff in. So any meeting that you want to watch, you can watch it anytime. So, and all available through our website, so boltonaccess.tv.
Excellent. Cool. Yeah, it's up in the menus that are across the top. There's one that says watch. And that's where you would go to watch either channel or to watch any of the past programs that are there. So that's pretty neat. Cool.
That's great.
And so you're gonna tell us about the cameras that might be coming?
So we're trying to figure out what sort of system would work to bring 4 HD cameras back from here. So there's, they're duking it out. What can I tell you? Trying to figure out how to make it happen. Nobody's sending 4 IP cameras with the broadcast pick systems. So we're trying to figure out how best to do
Is
it.
this room bright enough for HD?
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So are there cameras that can move
Yeah, there would be.
pivot without somebody doing it, like they're auto?
There are those cameras, but that we like that we have a cable
Okay.
caster. That provides job opportunities for
Mhm.
high school students.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we don't necessarily want to make that go away.
Okay, good.
Yeah, there are voice activated cameras. So who's ever talking ends up
Mhm.
the one the camera's pointing at. So, yeah, but we'd rather not be obsolete. Thank you.
It's coming.
So as far as the fund is concerned, the suggestion or request that we wanted to make was that, and with a little background on it, is that we've kept a balance, or you have kept a balance in the cable fund that from 6 or 8 years ago was ostensibly there, so that if we had an emergency failure with the server, we'd be able to buy one. Well, we've bought one a month or so ago. And so we don't really see a need to keep all the money that's in there. Right now, there's 33,417. And it would be most flexible for us as far as making this project go once we figure out exactly what it's gonna be, if we had the money. And so if we could get that money transferred, the 33,417, then we would have that available. The project is probably gonna be, what, around 50? Is that more or less what we're?
That's what we're looking at now.
And so the rest of it we would take from funds that we already have in our account. And then there's new money coming in June that would, we probably wouldn't have any use for a while, so that would begin to build the fund back up.
And how much would that be?
12 will come in June.
So is the upgrade primarily to provide HD, or is there physically something wrong with what we have now that requires it to be replaced?
These cameras are really old, by industry standard. I mean, they're better than 10 years old at this point. And so they're, they experience problems. We have problems with them not activating when they're supposed to. And they're gonna fail. I mean, that's what it.
And they're not really replacing it. If they do fail, then you gotta do some kind of upgrade. So we're trying to stay a little bit ahead of that in what we're doing. So-
We also have an HD server, so it makes sense for us, everybody is getting away from standard def to HD. We can't broadcast yet in HD, but everything on the internet is HD. So it's an opportunity to keep up with industry standards for what people expect when they tune in.
Sounds good.
So what about the non-broadcast? Because you've cut back on the meetings that you're broadcasting live, the ones where you have a camera. Is that HD?
Yes. Because all of our field cameras are already HD.
So like
And I don't-
last night at the planning board, they're setting up, Erica's setting up the HD camera.
She pushes the buttons.
Right. And that seems to be working quite well, better than I thought it would, in terms of public feedback and everything else. I mean, there are a few people I've heard from who say they wish they could watch something live, but generally speaking, it provides what they need. And by the way, the new video on demand that we have is a lot easier to do. It's on our side of things, so it'll allow us to spend a lot less time and effort in converting over the programs and getting them up and things of that sort. I don't know if that will make it faster to get them up, but at least it's easier and it'll be consistent that it's there and everybody will know to look right there.
It definitely will make it faster to get them. I mean, a lot of thought went into this purchase to streamline workflow as much as possible. And Nikki's gonna do fabulous things.
Thank you.
Super.
So do you have a motion to, what
What's
is
the
it,
amount?
transfer?
33,417, 37.
We have a comment in the audience.
Mary Chumo, Corn Road. I just want to thank Teresa
for the programming that she has brought to the town. I'm with the Historical Society and with Friends of Bolton Seniors, and we have had many of our programs filmed so that they can be geared to a broader audience, and it's really been very beneficial, so.
I agree, yeah. I want to thank you, Teresa. You've done a lot of work behind the camera, but also, you know, building community, sharing information. It's been very valuable. Sad to see you go. It's exciting where you're going to.
I'll send video from afar. Thank you so much.
Yes, please send us pictures. It'll make us envious,
Yeah,
especially in the winter.
I told Cindy I'll bring a newspaper, so.
Okay.
The Independent's going everywhere.
Alright, so,
So that a motion?
okay, I'll make a motion, if it hasn't been already, to release the funds requested by Mr. Troop.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against?
Okay.
Good.
So we will be recording town meeting.
So there'll be a party on May 9th, open house at
Yeah, at the
Backville.
state.
Yep.
We will have a selectmen's meeting that night, but it looks like a short agenda right now.
Yeah, there you go. Come by.
Okay, you can have it as, yeah.
Thanks.
It's so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you.
We have the town administrator's report.
I'll do my part to try to help get us back on schedule, and I know Joe will be very brief as well. First update on Minuteman, we had a building committee meeting Monday night, which the meeting itself was very brief, but then the entire building committee and the Minuteman School Committee took a tour of the building. And it's been weather tight since November, and it's great to see the progress. I actually found it pretty moving to go through and see some of the progress and starting to picture, you know, the kids in there. And it's not a cafeteria anymore, it's a student union. I have to remember that.
College.
But the response, the superintendent tells me, Ed Quillen tells me that the response is so significant, it looks like there could be a wait list for the freshman class because of the new school. So it's going to be a really, really impressive school, and I'm really excited about it. And still on budget, still on track to open the doors in September.
That's great.
Update on the portico project. Got an update from Joe earlier today. Basically, we've had one more change order to deal with the fascia and some subframe issues relative to how we attach to the building, but nothing that we still believe the change order will keep us within budget. So it's not a budget buster. Prep work is being done now. The beams are all set. The shoring is in place, and once that change order that I told you is worked out, the next steps will be the columns will be coming out, so that'll be the most visible sign of progress. There's been a lot of work being done on the inside that, you know, people driving by may think nothing's going on, but there's been a lot of work going on the inside, and it's soon to become very visible on the outside. So again, and we're still on for June, and maybe June 30th at 11:59 p.m. I think.
They assure us.
Yep, I know they do. So, and I'm just gonna, I sent an email to you earlier today, forwarded it from Joe, not to steal too much thunder, but our Complete Streets Prioritization Plan, as I'm sure you saw, was approved by the state, which makes us an official Tier 3 complete street community, which makes us eligible to go pursue more money, which is exactly what Joe is going to be talking about tonight, so I'm going to toss the ball over to you.
We're going to segue very quickly after that right into an update on MassWorks as well, right? So while we're talking about Complete Streets consultants, we just put a couple of things up to help. Maybe the cameras can train in on them. So this is the official report in hard copy I'm going to present to Dawn. This has been the document, that document is not online yet, it will be tomorrow. I wanted you folks to receive it first. However, the crux of the words are this table that was submitted to the state, and we have had this up online for 2 weeks now. But this product is is the culmination of almost a 4 years worth of work, which had a lot of public input involvement, including the Board of Selectmen on a couple of presentations. What called out of that was the identification of a total of 28 concerns that fit the complete streets mold. And that really is that every road ought to have considerations for vehicles, of course, but pedestrians, handicapped access and cycling, and horses in some appropriate areas, for all modes of transportation. And again, they don't work everywhere, they don't work in a lot of places, but on the same token, that whenever we embark upon a project, we ought to consider those things and find a way to fit them in. Not that we have to, but we really ought to concern ourselves with trying to do that. So, the plan was submitted to the state. Don did steal some of my thunder, but that's a wonderful thing. Because what I was going to say is the presentation was intended to be that you folks would hear about it first, and that the state approval was pending. That they approved it this afternoon. The great news is the next grant application period closes on May 1st. And this is our application, all ready to go. So assuming we don't have any particular problems. So the state has approved it, we're eligible, we're ready to submit this. This will go in on Monday, and a couple days ahead of the deadline. So what really came out of this is, in the great thing is quite coincidentally, we embarked upon and got the Mass Works grants. Folks in town here know all about that. It's principally the intersection of Main Street at Wattaquatic, which I've come to find was the Arthur Ware intersection, because he was killed in the Battle of the Bulge, and has some significance there. But anyway, we've learned some things here, and it itself comprises 3 elements of the MassWorks grant. MassWorks priorities, and the first 5 priorities included Town Hall to that intersection. It also included that intersection to Manor, and it includes that intersection up to Berlin Road. MassWorks that we've selected and got the grant for actually picks up a lot of those pieces. And because we're embarking upon that, it fits in perfectly well with what we think to be within the next priority, is to take, in the limits that yet to be defined, and we'll talk about that in a little more detail, but pick up from where this project ends, somewhere near the Houghton building, and continue it to Town Hall. And that's the grant we're going to be putting in for. So they really like linkage, they especially like linkage on other projects that the Commonwealth is invested in, so that's the way we're going. So, again, it's an awful lot of information from the complete streets, but I guess the good news update is the process we went through was fruitful. We got a great work product out of it. The state agreed. It's been approved. Not rubber stamped. There was some back and forth comments, but we got those addressed and answered and solved. So, and we're going to meet the filing deadline, which otherwise could have been delayed by 6 months.
Great.
So, with that aside, we've made some serious progress on the MassWorks grant. This was awarded just back in October. Since then, we've got the survey done, and we've done. We're in the phase what's called design development. So it's really looking at, so what do we think, and as what we think, we try to vet it out, and so what kind of works, and okay, when that gets solved, how does it affect the neighbors? We think about it as a technical perspective first, refine that, which we've done, and then we met with all the neighbors by invitation last Thursday night. We leafleted everybody from Manor Road all the way down to the last house across from Town Hall here, along Main Street, and we did Wattaquatic, all the residences and all the households down to Manor. We had a great turnout at that meeting. Some of the selectmen have been briefed on that, and they know it was good and productive. What we did in that opportunity was to roll out the plan of what we saw, and then spend a good hour and a half paying attention to what concerned the neighborhood. And from the get-go, we knew mailbox placement was important. Pedestrian safety is a requirement. The design concept of the signal was the element that got us the grant. I mean, those things are happening. So we didn't necessarily understand, and that's the beauty of doing these types of meetings with the neighborhood, is that we thought the parking should be on the north side of the road, and the neighborhood thought it should be on the opposite side, the south side. So not on the Houghton side, but on the side where water comes in. And so we took it back, and we listened to a whole bunch of other comments from a couple of dozen, if not 30 people in that room. And went back, and this is that phase that's the result of that meeting. Still in design development, so what we now have is a refinement that we think better fits with the comments that were raised. We hope the neighborhood continues to embrace that, but then we'll roll it out again, and we still have some individual folks that we want to talk to in more detail. We agreed we were going to flag property lines, so if people who can't visualize a project or land based on a plan can see in their own front yard, what does this mean to me? We had street view photographs and stuff that we had an opportunity for everybody to talk to us about, and those were very good, but we agreed to go out and do the flags, and we will. So what we're at now is, assuming that we've got the elements right, and that the design certainly is correct, in that the neighborhood impacts are still ones that are minimal and being embraced, we really get into more detailed estimate. The planning estimates still have us working within that $975,000 number. But as you get into more detailed estimates, and as son of a gun, we have to relocate a fence, that's another $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. Those thousands of dollars adds up and they affect the project overall. So we get into that more refined estimating, and that's going to better define the full limits. Right now, the limits of the project are ostensibly Mechanic Street to the library along Main Street. And it is from Main Street along Wattaquatic all the way to Manor or the ball fields in the general vicinity. Where it actually breaks remains to be seen.
At least, halfway.
This is Tom Laughlin from Baker Associates. He's our project manager.
We think we met briefly when we applied for the grant.
And Amy Allen is the staff engineer who really does all the work.
And I would agree with that. So as Joe explained, the limits, the general grant was based on the ability to move the vehicles out of the public safety building when they get a call to come up to Main Street and be able to respond. And the way in which that would work is the signal would have detection on it and on the vehicles. They would come up, signal they're coming, and they could signal from any direction that they're coming, and it would receive the message. But it would clear that path that they're about to travel on. In this case, leaving the public safety building, it would clear. Wattaquatic would have a green. People would go left and right, and the trucks would be able to come up while Main Street would be held on reds. I'm sure you've seen that try to happen without the signal, and quite an experience. I'm amazed that the fire department makes it happen every time they come out there. As Joe said, this is preliminary. We've tried to connect ourselves to enough destinations, library, get ourselves down to mechanic, get down to the ball fields and beyond. And now what we're doing at the end of this week, tomorrow, and early Monday and Tuesday is to put a price on the whole thing. We're not sure we can build everything that's on these plans, but from that estimate, start to pick priorities. How far would you want to extend sidewalk on Main Street? Maybe one side to Mechanic, or both sides up to a different limit, and start to have those types of discussions, coupling it with hopefully you're successful on the complete streets, and where would that be a more successful program to continue those sidewalks and things like that. As Joe said, we heard a lot about parking. We heard a lot about the proximity to some of the different elements along the roadway. Joe had mentioned about Arthur Ware. We think that would be something that could enhance this area as well. Right now, the sign is kind of stuck down in here behind, in between the bushes and the building. Bring it out, make it a little more prominent, as well as some of the other markers you have. You have I believe it's this one here.
The old townhouse marker.
The old townhouse marker. There's an old marker down here for the distance to Boston, and also enhance with the grass strip, some better designation of vehicles, bike lanes, and defined parking that's protected as well, up against the edges.
So without diving into design details, what we really have is a fully signalized intersection that makes the traffic move efficiently. We have parking configuration as designed before and now, based on the neighborhood meeting, that results in lane shifts and turning lanes where traffic has to move through. We're gonna be creating grass strips where there aren't any, so the mailboxes can go there, sidewalks behind that, the granite curb pull up to the right heights, line striping for bike lanes and whatnot. All of that verticality, all that marking, all those shifts, all of those things intrinsically slow traffic, calm traffic down. So what we're going to see is not only a functional intersection, but we're gonna see some inherent calming in the off-peak hours. I think sometimes in heavy traffic, the calming simply is the traffic, but in off-peak hours, when people are inclined to speed through, you're gonna see that inherently slow down.
And certainly improve walkability as well.
Oh, yeah, those are all the elements, and we approached this application with the full mindset that we were gonna comply with the Complete Streets policy, so we've hit every element. We've got cycling, we've got parking for the people, for some of the small businesses that are there. We have pedestrian safety, we have handicapped accessibility. What we don't have is horses, and we don't think they fit in the context of Main Street. So I think this is a grand slam. We're gonna continue to move with design development. I'm gonna put a little pressure on our consultants by saying, in a couple of weeks, we're gonna have a better understanding of the limits. I'm gonna probably roll it out to the neighbors and again and give them an update. I'm gonna create, with our technical folks in town, I'm gonna create a webpage within our webpage, which is a project section, where I can keep updates fed into this.
Great.
This information here will be up there, by the end of next week. And with that, we're hoping to really get down into detailed design and plans and specifications. Tom, correct me, midsummer?
I hope to be advertising in a month.
Yeah, advertising in a month.
And then
So with bids probably back,
bids for 2 to 3 weeks on the street, and then I'll bring it back in again for, June, July.
And just as a reminder for the board, if everything's successful, the banning of through truck traffic on Waterquatic.
Yes, yeah. So we are, as part of this, we are looking, we are applying for an exemption for truck exclusion on Waterquatic.
I should have said exclusion.
And, we put that in front of MassDOT for their consideration. There's a justification process that we go through. We just given Joe tonight a draft report of that.
No, actually, Amy did.
Yeah, Amy did the report, definitely.
Would not prohibit local deliveries such as to the winery.
Yeah,
but
oil
no through
deliveries,
traffic.
anything like that your home would need for service, anything like that would be allowed, but it's those larger trucks, hauling gravel, deliveries, materials. There's some very large tractor trailers that drive that road. And making this turn, into Waterquatic is ridiculous.
We can put this series of photographs up on the we will put this series of photographs up on the website. The one up top is shot looking westerly towards the library, but the Cracker Barrel, that's what's there now. And the science of magic, or the magic of science, whichever it is that same photograph retouched to show the cross sections that we're proposing at that location. So you'll see the sidewalks there. We don't infect the porch of the Cracker Barrel. Probably looks like it did in colonial days where you could saunter right up onto it. There's grass in front of it, the curbing, the bike lane, travel lane, as you come into the intersection, travel lane on the other side, bike lane on the other side, and then the indented parking where we thought we could still preserve 5 spaces, and in the right of the common, it's where they belong as well. So, all of those things that we've set out to do in the beginning haven't changed too much yet, and if it fits the budget, it's all gonna get done.
It's great.
So what do we need from the selectmen tonight?
Applause. We're going so fast, it's almost scary. Unless we're doing something, we're gonna continue to reach out to the neighborhood, that's important. We're gonna get it out on the website so people see it.
Yeah.
I know that Main Street has been a third rail on many discussions over the years. Our hopes is to really roll out something that everybody can be proud of for the next 50 years.
But as far as the grant application, you need a signature.
Grant application, no, it's uploaded through the portal. When you approve a prioritization plan, it allowed the town, and we can certainly.
I think it should be a vote by the selectmen.
Let's do that, whether we need it or not. It's a great way to, and I can put that, a letter to that effect in the upload.
We just have one comment.
Sure.
Well,
would like to remind that the actual work, when it happens, should not be allowed to damage, cause collateral damage to the historic buildings in that area. Particularly the brick store is very vulnerable. So are some of the other buildings right around there that are, after all, in a National Register Historic District. Not that that gives much protection, but it does acknowledge their importance.
Yeah, Alice, you raised a couple of real good points. One is the historic preservation of this. Though there's not much protection, we're respecting every aspect of the historic district. We intend to change nothing. Even where the sidewalks are gonna be moving closer, those transitions, those things that are in people's, what they think are in the front yard but are in town property, we're still gonna move those back. So the look of the yards in the neighborhood is gonna be identical. It'll be a lot safer. When you go into Boston, those silver galvanized metal, ugly looking streetlights, we're not doing that for the streetlights. We're doing, subdued colors. They're gonna blend in. They're gonna be black or green. We haven't decided yet. Nobody's decided those kind of details yet. But we're gonna really make it look like the quaint village that it's always been. So that's the important part of the integrity of the district. And then, of course, private property damage is something we're just not gonna tolerate. You can't damage private property. So we're saying that. And there are gonna be things that as these conversations go on with you and your neighbors, we're gonna know the things that you're vulnerable. Kia mentioned to me that several years ago when they ground, they had a light fall down. Well, we pay attention to those things, and we're gonna know to be careful as we lay it out, and the spec will be very clear in requiring protections on some things. And I mentioned that Arthur Ware. First of all, I'm a military guy. I went to Norwich University. General Harmon was the president of the university. I carried his casket. General Harmon was Arthur commanding general. So I'm very intrigued to get to the bottom of that, and if it takes an action or takes some sort of official action, I think that this rather than the intersection of Main and Wattaquaga, as we've been referring to, maybe we think about calling it the Arthur Ware Square. Maybe this project allows us that. The other thing we're looking at is we have the big orange FEMA trailer with the lights flashing, dog license time, taxes are due. We're really looking at using the sign of the kiosk that's there at the front and maybe perhaps put a message board built into that so drivers can see us going by and fit in better with the neighborhood and fit in with the use of the common. So those are the types of things we're trying to fit in. And we do. We're gonna set a meeting up either Monday or Tuesday of next week, correct? With you to talk about your individual concerns that we talked about last Thursday.
So if we could get a motion from the board to approve the submittal of the plan.
The plan or the master's plan?
So the motion would be to
grant that.
authorize the town of Bolton through its Public Works Department to submit a Tier 3 complete streets grant for Main Street from Mechanic to Town Hall.
In the sum, I believe, of $394,000.
Second.
It is $394. It is $394,000.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Thank you for your enthusiasm. It's contagious, Joe.
That's good.
Thank you. Thank you for your help.
Really appreciate it.
Another thing that's been on our plans for a long time.
There's another copy of the prioritization plan we'll make available at the library. So there'll be one at Town Hall, one at the library, and then we'll keep it for our record. And of course, the one online for everybody.
Good luck. All right, we'll see you.
Thank you again. So we're gonna move on to Board of Selectmen business. We have public service announcements.
Yes, well, we just completed one, program, so certainly congratulations to him. You have a very good chance of getting that. But also, just recently, Don had sent us an email about some grants that our new fire chief is going after, significant grants. Looks like to the tune of, close to $160,000, $170,000. So that's really great. And, I just thought I would give a shout out because, it's the hard work that all of the department heads and certainly Don, has done in terms of ferreting out and applying for all these grants. So I certainly want to give a shout out to the department heads and to Don for their tireless work in getting that done. I think, without them, we certainly wouldn't be getting some of the funding that we get. Some years we get more than other years, just depending upon the grants that are available and whether or not they consider Bolton a needy town or not. In 4 cases not, they don't, but it's just the way it goes. So, kudos to the department heads and to Don for all the work they do on getting the grants.
Great, thank you, Don.
May I?
Oh, yes.
Yes. I have been talking with John for months about this, and I've talked to the selectmen individually, and I just wanted to officially announce that I'm going to retire in July. July 1st, I will have been with the town for 31 years, which is, by the way, half of my life.
The better half, I hope.
Yeah. I've enjoyed working with everyone, made a lot of friends and everything, but it's time to spend more time with the family and kids and grandchildren and all that, so.
Good. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We are worried you're taking the building with you and.
No, I'll leave it.
Oh, we get a new one, now, I don't know about that. But
So,
I think Linda also deserves a.
Yeah.
So we have 2 months to say
so
our
yes,
goodbyes.
yes, and they're advertising to fill the position, and I will, do what I can to help to get that person up and running, and you'll be fine.
I needed,
You gotta keep him in line.
I needed Marty to give me a jump start. I was dragging my feet on getting that advertisement up, but what we did, it's up on MMA, and it'll be advertised in the paper. I've already, well, we have plans, so we'll see.
Thank you.
Well, Linda, thank you for your professionalism, your intelligence, and your warmth.
Thank you.
You are a wonderful presence in town hall. And,
I will miss you guys, but I'll come back.
You will be
and visit.
missed.
Yes.
I hope we're gonna have a big part.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm working on it already.
I know,
Already
Don,
ready.
I know there's some contractual issues between you and Don and his early retirement that have to be
Well,
resolved.
sure, he violated that contract.
Right.
He wasn't supposed to leave until I knew.
Not black and not black. Okay, gold.
A lot of people moving on. Oh, that's hard. So we have a request from Mary Chuma to,
We missed one.
To approve a $50 fee.
we have a recommendation to approve a $50 fee for data entry for contractors submitting paper applications for permits.
So we actually went live with Viewpoint almost 4 months ago. And I think the implementation has gone great. Almost everybody is doing online submissions now. There are still some people that come in and will use our kiosk. And if they need a little help with the kiosk, that's fine. Really, this is for, we've only had one person say this, resist having to do it at all. And it's not that we don't want to be helpful. We are happy to, as I said, to walk somebody through the kiosk, but if somebody just wants to do it the old-fashioned way and give us the paper form, we think it's time to charge for that, and we're proposing that the fee be $50.
Fine with me.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to Authorize a $50 fee for data entry for contractors submitting paper applications for permits.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Now we have a request to proclaim the month of May as Senior Appreciation Month. Mary
Thank you.
Schumer, welcome.
There you are.
Fine. Been a long night, so I'll make it quick. So this is the kickoff for May, which is Senior Appreciation Month, and so I have a proclamation for you to sign, and I will read it. So our activities can be seen on the COA newsletter and also on the FOBS website, which is www.fobsbolton.org. So, the proclamation, Town of Bolton, Massachusetts, by the Board of Selectmen, Senior Appreciation Month, May 2019, a proclamation. The theme this year is Connect, Create, Contribute. Whereas the Town of Bolton includes a growing number of older Americans who enrich our community through their diverse life experiences. And whereas the Town of Bolton is committed to strengthening our community by connecting with and supporting older adults, their families, and caregivers, and acknowledging their many valuable contributions to society. And whereas the Town of Bolton recognizes the importance of bringing together all generations and engaging in activities that promote physical, mental, and emotional well-being for the benefit of all. And whereas the Town of Bolton can enhance the lives of older Americans in our community by promoting home and community-based services that support independent living, involving older adults in community events and other activities, and providing opportunities for older adults to work, volunteer, learn, lead, and mentor. Now therefore, the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Bolton, Massachusetts do hereby proclaim May 2019 to be Senior Appreciation Month. We urge every resident to take time during this month to recognize older adults and the people who serve them as essential and valuable members of our community. In official recognition, we affix our signatures this 25th day of April 2019.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for reading that. Where does that go?
It will be on display at the Bolton Senior Center throughout the month. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Mary, is the banner going up?
The banner will be going out probably Monday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have a nice night.
Request to grant the Neshoba Over the Hill Soccer League permission to start games at 8:30 a.m. on 10 Sundays per year. So I guess that's 5 in the spring, 5 in the fall.
You've received comments from Ms. Foster, Laura Roberts, Chair of Parks and Rec, and from Mr. Corney.
I understand the Parks and Rec met with Jackie.
Yeah, here's a letter from,
Back beginning of-
Park, this one's from Laura, Park and Rec.
Yep.
Mhm.
You can use some, you guys can share.
So there's only 3 games now.
3 left this year, yeah.
3 left.
3 remaining for the spring, and then will be 5 in the fall.
How are those games spaced out, like within the spring season? Is it like every other, or
No,
it's?
it depends on the league.
Okay,
So, the league's got 300-something teams they have to schedule in a bracket sometimes, so
Mhm.
their software does it and works it out. So we can have 2 in a row and then 2 off.
So
Usually that's sort of the most, but it all depends.
it's
on-
5 games over how many?
Hmm?
It's 5 games over how many weeks is the season?
The season will be 11 weeks, because usually there's a holiday weekend in there, and in.
Okay, so it's 5 days over 10 or 11 weeks.
Mhm.
Excuse me, it's not 5 games, it's 5 days. There's 3 games in a day.
Okay.
2,
Well, you said you needed 8:30 because you needed to fit 3 games in.
no, I needed 2:30 to get 2 in
Either
in
way.
time.
You
Okay.
had 2 games last year, no problem.
Okay.
Can you identify yourself?
Pardon?
Hmm.
Jackie Foster.
Okay. So the sign at the park, and this is all parks in town, it's open from dawn to dusk, is that correct?
Yep.
So that would be Memorial Field, it would be the lacrosse fields.
We actually commented about that many times, and
Mhm.
they said they would leave the signs like that and deal with it, the towns of that. Because they don't want to limit, recreational use. People can walk and throw a frisbee for their dog, and but yeah, I think all the fields have the same sign. But they also say like no use without permission too, and a couple of other things, I think, like pick up after your dog.
So the Over the Hill soccer group, there's not a lot of like audience, like with the youth programs, there's a
No,
lot of
most-
parents and
it-
there's like a big sale and.
No, at most I've seen, half a dozen, plus some people's kids.
Mhm.
That's it.
Well, I don't have a problem granting the request.
Yeah, I think 8:30 seems reasonable.
On a Sunday morning? On a Sunday morning, you think the selectmen didn't think it was reasonable before, so I'm just curious why it's reasonable now.
Well, in my neighborhood, in most neighborhoods, just things are happening, whether it's, people are getting up and mowing, leaf blowing, running, biking, the world wakes up.
On Sunday mornings at 7 a.m.
So they're saying 8:30.
Nope, they show up at 7:30 to warm up. Their alarms go off on their cars. 20 balls at a time are shot 100 feet from our bedroom window. There's yelling and screaming. You cannot sit outside because it's not like little kids. These men are not yelling nice things. This is a release for them. I would, before the selectmen make a decision against what the selectmen promised the neighbors, maybe they would like to come down and actually witness what a Sunday is like there. Because we deal with the soccer every single night from 4 p.m. till dark. We can't sit outside, and kids are screaming, whistles are blowing. I venture anybody here in their neighborhood to sit on your patio and try to enjoy your dinner with your family to that commotion every night of the week. And then Saturday morning, it starts again at 7:30, and we deal with it. We listen to the little kids running around Bolton residents, and it goes right until 5. Then Sunday morning, everyone that I know likes to sleep a little later, get up, have a cup of coffee, maybe read their paper. We cannot do that. And the people playing are not Bolton little kids. Ask Tom how many players are from Bolton that are gonna be there. 18, all day. In the morning, you've got Lancaster, Stowe, and Bolton, and now my understanding is there's a Westford connection to the team. So there's 4 towns that could be sharing this commotion. But we're expected to give up 20% of our Sunday mornings to people that don't pay to rent the field, aren't taxpayers. I think that,
I estimated a minimum of $200,000 paid every year
I
by
was
the
told.
players from Bolton on these teams. And that's counting the active roster now, not
Hundreds
counting
of
the
kids
guys that
every
are
day
hurt and
playing.
just retired.
This
I
is
think we pay more than our fair
a
share.
residential neighborhood. They built 3 soccer fields. We deal with it. We give up
6 days a week to soccer. We asked for a little break to enjoy a cup of coffee in the morning, and the selectmen thought that was a reasonable request. And the reason they're asking for it is so someone can get to their job somewhere else that has nothing to do with Bolton whatsoever. I'd kind of like to sleep in a little bit on Sunday mornings so I can do my job. I work late. My husband's a landscaper. He's up every single day and out the door by 7 a.m. He'd like to sit on his $800,000 house and enjoy it for a little bit on a Sunday morning. And 8:30 is not reasonable. I'm sorry. It is absolutely not reasonable when you're listening to whistles. It's not a bike going by. It's not happy people. These guys swear. They yell at each other. They yell. I'm not going to get emotional right now. I've been up since 5 a.m. I left a work meeting early to get here. The selectmen promised us.
No, the
You can't just break a promise like
Selectmen
this.
took a vote some number of years ago.
Yep, and they had a room full of people and they got comments from the town. This was a sneaky attack. I didn't even know about this event tonight. I got an email from Park and Rec. I had to leave work. I mean, give me a break. You could have at least, do it in a way that's nice. You guys are doing all this work for everyone else in town when you change stuff around. You're not even gonna give the neighbors a chance. You guys haven't even been to the soccer field.
I believe you met with Park and Rec at the beginning of this month, is that not?
I went in, yeah, we went in for another
Okay, so-
matter and
so-
they asked for my opinion and we
But-
gave it.
And I would assume that you mentioned that you were before the select board prior to
I
that.
sent a letter to Laura because I wasn't able to be at that meeting.
Okay, but I mean, the neighbors, or the neighbor.
No neighbors were told at all. Laura just happened to tell me as a Park and Rec courtesy, and she sent me an email tonight as a
No,
courtesy.
no, that's not what I'm asking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
The
not what I'm
neighbors were
asking.
not notified, no.
No, that's not what I'm asking. You knew at the Park and Rec meeting at the beginning of April that Park and Rec had come before the select board requesting the request that they're making tonight. Is that?
Yes, I knew that because I was here,
Okay.
and you suggested that
I,
they go back and
but
talk to
what
the
I'm,
neighbors.
what I'm saying is that at that early April meeting, the neighbors, or if you were the only one that was there, were told that Park and Rec had come before us.
Nope, I was told that night when I was there, we were there for a Rotary matter, and she said that these guys had asked, and she said, she was like, gonna do it. She just said, we're gonna move this time, and I go, no, I said, the selectmen told us 9 o'clock, she had no idea. She said she had no idea that the selectmen had already promised us 9 o'clock. And I said, well, that's what they promised us, and I have no intention of saying that it's okay to just start changing things willy-nilly. 10 games, that's the whole season.
I'm gonna ask the question again.
Yeah, I was not notified.
I'm gonna ask the question again. When you had the meeting with the neighbors back
I
in,
didn't.
or whoever from Park and Rec,
So, I'm not on Parks and Rec, right? I came before you guys at the last meeting with the request. Parks and Rec was also here. They'd already had a vote and said that they approved. The selectmen asked the Parks and Recreation to reach out to the neighbors
correct?
to make them aware of it. They did that at that meeting,
And
Parks and Rec, which all I did was send a draft of the letter I sent to you, which was there for your last meeting, but not in time to make the agenda. So,
but the request that was being asked for was made known
oh yeah,
at that Park
Parks and
and Rec.
Rec knew by then, and you all knew. by
Okay.
then.
What they didn't know was that there was already a 9 a.m. promise by the selectmen. Laura was not the Park and Rec at the time. She had no idea. And we weren't even asked before the vote was taken. Apparently it was already taken before talking to the neighbors. That's the first I heard of that. That it was a total back way to do it. It was like, I can't,
Again, I'm gonna ask the question like for the 9th time.
I wasn't at this meeting he's talking about. We know nothing about it. We were told apparently after the vote was taken.
There was a meeting, by a meeting of Park and Rec, my understanding, where a vote was taken. Then apparently Park and Rec had scheduled a meeting with the Board of Selectmen. After that, Park and Rec had another meeting because we requested that Park and Rec reach out to the neighbors. So the neighbors were aware back in early April that one, that they had taken the vote, and 2, that they had met with the Board of Selectmen.
That is not true.
What-
She just told me the other day.
How do we, What do you mean that Parks and Recs had a meeting with the neighbors? I know we asked them to do that. I don't know what mechanism by which that was done.
I believe that the Park and Rec had a meeting.
I don't believe Park and Rec had a meeting with the neighbors.
They did not.
Parks and Rec had a meeting, Jackie was at the meeting.
Laura emailed one or more neighbors, I don't know how many. Subsequent to that, there was another Parks and Rec meeting, which Jackie attended. She was there for a Rotary issue, and while she was there, the issue came up again. So that was the first week of April, I don't know the date.
So to your knowledge, Parks and Recs did not reach out to the neighbors to say, on behalf of the selectmen, we want to collect your opinion about this?
To the best of my knowledge, Laura reached out to, I know she reached out to Jackie, that started the email exchange. I don't know how many, if any, other neighbors were reached out to. That I can't tell you.
But all she said was, hey, by the way, soccer asked to move the time to 8:30, and my email was for 3 games, and I said, absolutely not. I said, they're gonna ask for 3, then it's gonna be 5, and look, now it's 10. And I said, if you're asking me, I said, it's absolutely no way. I said, talk to the selectmen, they promised us 9 o'clock. And that's how it ended, and then I got an email 2 days ago saying they were coming back to the selectmen again.
But that email, which referenced 3 games, was the first you knew that this topic was up for discussion?
Absolutely, because I was shocked.
Is that your
We had
answer
asked
to your
for
question,
no
John?
games on Sunday, like, we don't want any games
Yeah.
on Sunday.
Well, it would appear that Park and Rec did not have a meeting where an agenda item was this particular topic, which we.
Well, it could have been, but it wasn't. I mean, I don't know what their agenda is, but they didn't send a note or.
My understanding is they did have it as an agenda item at the April meeting.
Okay.
Early April meeting. I believe it was an agenda item.
And were neighbors notified of this meeting?
Yeah, but how
I
many other people were?
don't know. I don't want to say yes or no.
But there needs to be a conversation, at least a little notice would be good. I know one of my neighbors works at night. I mean, we don't want to be the bad guys in town, and then last time it was a big to-do. We don't want to be a big to-do. We just want to enjoy a little bit of family time on a Sunday morning in our yard. We think that's reasonable, and it is absolutely undoable when there's soccer games going on for 3 or 4 hours, starting at 8:30 in the morning on a Sunday. It can't happen.
And I have to say that the other issue that's been, I don't know, exposed, brought up tonight, whatever, is there language being used down there that wouldn't be allowed anywhere else in town?
You can't open your windows. I can't have a phone call for work when the kids are playing, just because, but at least they're happy screens. You can't. It's
Well,
guys
I'm not
playing
just
soccer.
talking about the noise
Yeah,
level, I'm
I
talking
mean,
about,
no, it's
you flagged
inappropriate.
there was some
It's inappropriate
inappropriate language. And, that wouldn't, I don't think that would be,
It's expected. It's guys playing. I
it
mean,
wouldn't be expected at the baseball field. I wouldn't expect anybody playing basketball
They
after
do.
hours. I'm sure it's used, but it's not so that the whole neighborhood could hear it.
it's not in the neighborhood. It's not 100 feet from someone's bedroom window. None of the other fields have this problem. And they knew it was a problem when they built the fields. And they were supposed to be building other fields. These guys were actually supposed to move over to the cow fields or whatever those fields are behind the school. It's always been inappropriate to be there. It's never been welcome in the neighborhood. It's harsh. I don't know another way to put it.
Do we need another meeting with Parks and Rec? I don't know how to proceed.
I mean, are you gonna let this happen on the common? If it's open from 6 a.m. to whenever, and with the people's house
Well,
windows lit or
down
something
the
like
street
that?
from me, they play basketball into the evening.
They're nowhere near houses.
Yeah.
No, there's
Not
not
even
my
close.
house, but there are houses across from
They're
that.
4 times the distance than my bedroom window is next to that soccer goal. At least 4 times the distance. I'm a sponsor of that soccer court. I'm a sponsor of the town common. We're sponsors of pretty much everything in town. I've lived here for 28 years. I pay my dues. We just want reasonable 8:30 start, 7:30 warm up. Come and see it. Come down and
The
hang
only
out.
person there an hour before is me,
Come down.
putting the flags up. cleaning up trash left by
Come down and
the
visit.
kids the day before, setting up the nets.
Come visit.
Well, I think the one thing here that we don't really seem to know is what exactly was whatever mechanism, if there ever was one.
To contact the neighbors.
Yeah, it's not clear to me. You're saying.
Well, at least in a more formal way, if a selectmen make a vote on something, the neighbors rely on that. I rely on that. I'm actually shocked I'm here, and I expressed that to Park and Rec. I understand things change, but to at least do it in a way that isn't 11th hour, a little notice, and give people a chance to make their comments without feeling
We
like this.
We thought that's what was happening.
I had no idea it was already voted on, I can tell you that, because that seems to me like, either way, we're not dragging it out all night. You guys made us a promise. If you're reneging on the promise, I would like more of an opportunity to present a case. And one of that could be that you guys might go down there and check it out and see what you're voting on and see if you would like to wake up to that on 20% of your Sundays. That's, the other 20% are winter, by the way, or 10%. And the other 20 are summer, and you're not opening your windows in the summer. So this is not like downtime. This is not like made up time. This is the time you look forward to all winter, to sit outside and have a cup of coffee. We can't do that on Saturday or Sunday.
So you sit on your front lawn and have a cup of coffee? I'm just asking.
We have our patio, we're right there, we're 100 feet. Yeah, that's our patio, right there.
Patios beside the house.
And my bedroom window is from here to the end of the parking
So
lot. We
Don,
measured.
this issue comes to us
And some
rather
goes
than
uphill.
being resolved by Parks and Rec. Why?
Well, it was at Parks and Rec, it was at Parks and Rec's request. Parks and Rec took the vote in March, I'm sure it was March. And
Well,
then,
the reason it comes to us is because the selectmen had a vote years ago, which Parks and Rec does not have the authority to override.
correct,
Okay.
that's correct.
That's
So
why
they-
it's backing up.
But they didn't know that, I don't think they knew until I told them, just saying, but he knew.
They took the vote in March, and then subsequently, Parks and Rec came to the selectmen's meeting because of the pushback and knowing that there was a vote taken several years ago. I don't remember how many,
Right.
maybe 2011 if I remember correctly, I'm not sure. Okay, I'm off a year. So,
Who said no?
No, I said, whoa.
okay, I thought you said no.
No, sorry, I shouldn't.
There was a lot of discussion.
So, but anyway,
Yeah.
to answer your
We
question.
have a document
So
for
the-
that.
ultimately, yeah, I mean, it would be in the minutes of the meeting, for sure. Ultimately, the selectmen have jurisdiction over land in town. And Parks and Rec really came to the selectmen to say, hey, look, this is the vote we took. We know there was a vote taken years ago for 9 o'clock. The request was 8, we thought we could compromise to 8:30. That apparently is not acceptable, we need the selectmen to weigh in. That was the March meeting, and that was when you asked that they go back and reach out to
The neighbors.
to the neighbors, and then this would be dealt with again at this meeting tonight. So, I mean, I met with Laura, and then I exchanged email with her. I know, as I said, I know that there was discussion, electronic discussion, what have you, email exchange with Jackie. I just honestly don't know
Right.
who, if any other neighbors were reached out to. There may have been several, there may have been none, I don't know.
Okay, so we'll,
Well, I think.
put the ball back in their court.
Well, absent of having any definitive information as to whether or not Park and Rec actually.
We have no information what the other neighbors thought.
We have no information other than Jackie, and
Right.
we have no information as to whether or not Park and Rec reached out to the neighbors.
Right.
And whether they held this conversation in a public meeting. I mean, Laura, I think a public meeting should have been the proper venue, because it's not Laura Roberts acting as Laura Roberts reaching out to.
Well, I believe there was a public meeting. I have no doubt that there was a public meeting. I know because it was held at the big table upstairs, and the staff that were here that night could hear every word that was stated at the meeting. So I know that the meeting of April 2nd was a public meeting.
But did they notify the neighbors that they were having this meeting
absolutely no idea.
That I don't know.
I have absolutely no idea.
Jackie's saying no.
Right, I mean,
Well, she didn't tell me she did, she just didn't.
I mean, honestly, it would have been helpful to have someone from Parks and Rec here tonight. If the chair can't make it, there were 4 other members. It would have been helpful if somebody was here.
Yeah, they notified Jackie about the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, she was just kind of nonchalant, hey, by the way, and I was like, wait, whoa, I was like, no, we don't agree to that, like, they almost, and then it just kind of, we left it with their hands, and the next thing I got a note the other
So
day was
does
just
the
saying,
board wish to continue this to the next agenda?
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry, Tom, you know,
No, they notified her, she agrees to that, but that's the first.
It does seem a bit ridiculous that the article that purchased Forbush put it on the Board of Selectmen to deal with this. And you guys keep punting it to Laura to go reach out to people that you're also capable of reaching out to for the meeting. And yet, it's just bouncing back and forth. All right? I mean, it's silly that,
this is a soccer game, this is my life, this is where I live. You're actually acting like that over a soccer game, Scotty?
that's like anything. I'm just saying, it just seems silly. And that,
Soccer.
well, I think,
well,
I
here's
think,
that.
well, Tom, you're not, obviously not part of Park and Rec, but, you know,
I was.
I know you were, you were there, but you're not now. But I mean, I think that this process could have been dealt with a bit differently. And unfortunately, we're in the cycle that we're in.
Yep, all right.
So May
So to
9th,
be clear, what, is there going to be, this time, more clarity on exactly what Parks and Rec needs to do and document before it can come back? Because obviously there wasn't. Because my talking with Laura, she did reach out to neighbors, more than just Jackie. I just don't have a record of it. I think it was a phone call, more than an email saying, yeah, I talked to these. There's only 3. In fact, I think she also heard from someone on the back side, whose house is up near the back of Jackie's, that just found the whole thing amusing. You can hear the kid, her daughter reffing from Forbush all the way over there, and or coaching or whatever.
I know Laura did communicate with at least one other neighbor. As I said, I don't know how many neighbors there are,
There's 3.
and I don't know how many
Possible.
were
Only
communicating.
Jackie was there before the field. The other 2 moved in after the field was there. All right.
So I believe May 9th is our next meeting.
Splitting the baby.
All right, how about at that meeting, I would want a quorum of Park and Rec at this meeting, and I want the neighbors notified. I mean,
We'll be conducting it like a hearing, even though it won't formally be a hearing then, right?
Well, it's just
Right.
gonna be, we get everybody in the same room, because it seems we're getting bits and pieces here.
Yes.
And we're not getting the whole thing, and certainly, you know,
So when you say neighbors, you mean Forbush Mill Road? What do you,
yes,
The ones across.
the ones across the
just
street.
across from?
Forbush Mill Road, and I want a quorum of Park and Rec.
Yeah, and I think there's actually one backline lot there that's not visible from the road too.
Okay, we'll try to sort that out.
And moving on, we have a request from Tyrots to place signs at Route 495, Route 85, and Route 110 for annual reunion being held at the Bolton Fairgrounds in Lancaster on September 8th, 2019.
These guys do a good job, they
They
put them up
do.
and take them down.
They take
So
them down,
moved.
they are.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're sure of the date?
Yes.
Okay.
And
I
the year.
didn't cut and paste that.
And then we have acceptance of FY19 gifts.
And we have the consolidated list. Basically, Ninotchka brought to my attention that, you know, we've had several gifts given to us in FY19, which is wonderful, but technically, the Board of Selectmen is supposed to be voting to accept every gift. So we've got the summary there, and you can vote that as one motion.
Okay, I make a motion, we accept the FY19 gift acceptance list, totaling $24,770.44.
I'll second that, but I have a question.
Sure.
How does the senior fuel fund get dispersed?
Hang on.
Because it seems to me everything else here requires a vote of the town. Or am I wrong about that?
I need to look at it.
I believe that they.
The senior fuel assistance?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's no, that's not a vote of the board. We take donations in, we have a group of people that, are in place to manage that for, actually, Nanachka is very involved with that.
Right there, it's on there.
And the selectmen have to accept that?
It's still a donation to the town, so we should, accept it.
Okay. You have you seconded?
I second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the selectmen voted on October 4th, 2012, that no games can start before 9 a.m. on Sunday, starting with the spring soccer season in March 2013.
Yep.
Send a copy of those minutes to the
Could
selectmen.
you repeat that one more time?
Okay, in my
Yeah.
coverage,
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
soccer,
Oh, here, I-
after hearing complaints from Jackie Foster, who said the noise from early morning soccer on Sundays on the 4 of us remote fields is keeping your family from the quiet enjoyment of their property, and a rebuttal from the Parks and Rec, selectmen voted that no games can start before 9 a.m. on Sundays, starting with the spring soccer season in March 2013.
Right, yeah.
Okay, and the date of that was, the selectmen's meeting of October 4th, 2012?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I was sitting at the table and voted that, so.
The minutes distributed would be helpful.
We are going to postpone the appointment of Corinne Mackey to the Council on Aging
Why?
till the next meeting.
Council on Aging has not met, they got their meeting scheduled and stuff, so they wanna make the recommendation.
All right.
They wanna vote on it first.
Oh, well, that would be good.
We only need to do that once in the evening.
That's a mere technicality, right?
So the Board of Selectmen did a performance evaluation of the town administrator, Tom Lowe. He received an overall rating of 4.7 out of 5. There were 9 areas of evaluation. Tom did really well. We couldn't do it without you.
Thank you.
Little room for improvement.
Yeah, sure.
But you're doing an amazing job. So thank you, Don.
Well, thank you. Thanks to all three of you.
And we have approved bills, payroll warrants, W19-21 and W19-21A.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Do we have minutes?
No.
Are you waiting for anything from me?
Yes.
Yes.
Ooh, what
Yes.
dates?
Yes.
Before
I will
you
send,
leave, Linda.
all right, I'll
No,
send them to you.
no.
No, I'll send them,
February 28th,
February
regular session.
28th.
And January 24th.
Yeah.
Wow. Lost
I'm gonna
my
look right
email.
now. Hmm?
The press is very talkative tonight.
Linda, it's 2-2 going into overtime.
That's what,
Oh,
Nate just said.
it's a nail biter.
All right.
Sheesh.
It's a lousy game. All right, let's
We'll
move
go
this forward.
into
We
it.
have a gentleman here who's been
Into
waiting
executive
patiently.
session.
He doesn't mind, he's on the clock for God's
Yeah,
sake. He'll
yeah.
sit there all night.
I wanna watch the game.
Can you get it on your phone?
Yeah, he actually wants us to delay another 15 minutes so we can finish watching.
I'd like to make a motion, we move into executive session pursuant to MGLC 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 3, to discuss strategy with respect to threatened
Yeah.
litigation. Frank Chabot Jr., if the chair finds that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the board,
So moved.